What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the podcast. This is episode 271. Today, our guest is Tony Renteria. I'm very excited to put this one out. We reached out, and he reached out to us about having him coming on and talk about his campaign and what he believes in and kind of the future he sees for Lubbock if he is elected for mayor. I only ask that you guys listen to this with an open mind and fully listen to this conversation and take it from there. If you like the guy, go vote for him May 4th. We have other mayor candidates coming on another episode after this one. And if any other mayor candidate wants to come on, please reach out to me. I'm very easy to reach out to. We'd love to have you on and talk to you before the election, May 4th. Guys, I hope you really enjoy this one. I hope you really listen to this one. And I'm going to do something different for this episode and for all the episodes in the future. But starting with this one, I'm going to put out 2 or 3 clips of what I think is the most important topics of this episode. So those will also be on YouTube. You can go check those out. Those will only be on YouTube, but this is on every streaming platform. So if you're new, please subscribe to us on YouTube. That's a great way to support us. You can subscribe on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Hit that rate and review. You can also subscribe to the Patreon, patreon.com/snakepitstudios. That is a $1 tier. And we really appreciate those subscribes. We're really starting to, hit our stride in that. And other than that, guys, I hope you enjoy the episode. Thank you.
Here we go.
Tony Renteria.
Renteria. It's funny you say Renteria because I have to say that a lot because most people can't pronounce my name. And whenever I say my name, they ask me how to spell it. So I have to do it. So my daughters, whenever they say Renteria, and they would get on to me for saying it that way, Renteria. And before you know it, they're like, okay, it's Renteria. Because they're having to do it too. Everywhere they go like, excuse me?
Yeah.
Renteria.
There we go. You're running for mayor.
Yes, sir, I am.
You're one of 2 Latinos?
Yeah, so me and Adam Adam's the other one.
Let's make sure we pronounce the last name. Right?
Yeah, Renteria.
Right. I want to get started by asking you, what exactly is the job of a mayor? I don't think many people know that.
Yeah, the mayor is the CEO of Lubbock. Okay, there's a lot. Anything that goes through Lubbock, whether it's budget or any type of ordinance or anything, it has to go through city council, and the mayor basically calls balls and strikes on that on what can actually come before the council. He can table something, and after that, he's pretty much the swing vote. But I want you to think about something. Back when COVID hit, the mayor is actually the final authority, right? And so, when Dan Pope was mayor, he made that decision to shut all these businesses down, which, again, and people have their opinions on it. I have mine and I'm not afraid to tell people my opinion. I do it all the time. I don't think we should have. There's a lot of things you could have done rather than shut down a lot of families, which we're still recovering from that. So, mask mandates, all that's fine. If people want to believe that that's going to help, so be it. But let's find a safe way to let everybody in because, think about it. All these little mom and pop stores, the smaller businesses were being killed by that thing financially. But why is it okay for Walmart, for instance, to be open, but all these others? And those were the decisions that the mayors made at that level. So it's a very, very, very thin line that you ride whenever you elect a mayor. Because also, like you look at Oregon and some of these other states where you see all these riots and people burning stuff down, and those mayors were giving, and even in D.C., and I'll tell you a little story about that, but, the mayors give the police chiefs a stand-down order, and they cannot move. And so they were allowing their cities to be burned down, and even their police stations to be overtaken. People dying. It was anarchy. And those mayors were just sitting back. In fact, some of them didn't start budging until after those same people that were destroying downtown and everything started going to their home. They're like, well, wait a minute. Let's call in the National Guard. Let's stop this right now and let's retake our city. That's too much power for one person to abuse. And so whenever you start talking about protecting your city and stuff, the mayor has a huge role in it, even over what the city council does. And so when I say the mayor has a lot of authority, they do. So it's not just the council, because the mayor can shoot down a lot that the council. Think about at the at the national level, you have the president, then you have the two houses of Congress, and then you have the third branch, which is judicial, which is the Supreme Court. Then you come down to the state level, and you have the governor, and then you have the House of Representatives and the state Senate, and then you have two different Supreme Courts, one that's criminal and one that's the state Supreme Court, and then you have the Court of Criminal Appeals, and then at the city level, you have the same thing, but again, you have the mayor, who is basically the CEO of everything, and then the council acts pretty much as like your what your senators in House will do. They're voting on everything and just passing it through the mayor. So the mayor is kind of the swing vote. Then you have your city attorney and everything and obviously a district attorney and some others that, make sure that you keep law and order. So
our founding fathers they laid down a good work.
Yeah,
right?
They knew what they were doing, a lot smarter than I think I would have been back then, Well, I guess if you think about the time and age and what they just came out of when they came, into this country and what they saw by a sovereign rule and how that destroyed people's lives. And, they didn't want that for themselves here. The taxation without representation. Well, guess what we're getting now? It's weird, huh? It's all over again. We've run full circle.
So what made you want to run for mayor?
There's a lot of things, right? In fact, I'm heavily involved in the Trump campaign. Everybody knows that, and it's no secret. And I could be happily traveling out there and doing all kinds of stuff. But when you look in our own city and you look in your backyard, and when I say your backyard, your neighborhood, your neighbors around you, and our kids can't play outside, man. It's scary because you have human trafficking, your child trafficking, then you have, violence. I mean, right now, in fact, the sheriff spoke at our event the other day, Luca event, and he was talking about there's a drive-by shooting every day in Lubbock right now. We are ranked in the top 3 nationally in violent crimes in Lubbock, Texas. And something needs to be done. And we can't keep status quo. And so we have 2 council members running for this. And, and again, I'm a conservative guy. Adam has one set of beliefs, and he's welcome to go that direction. I've met Adam a few times. We're actually pretty cordial to each other. We just have different values, right? And he's got his values, and he's going to run on those, and I have mine, and mine are all based on conservative values. If you think about how we were raised, I was raised in the Arnett-Benson area when we moved up here from the time I was 4.5 on through, and and it's faith and family values, right? You do things because it's the right thing to do. You respect your abuelo, and you respect your mom and dad, and your tios can spank you, and there's a chancla flying everywhere you go, so you better behave. And then you have to work hard, and everything that you get is based off of work. So I'm that guy. I'm the guy that's connected in with this city. I don't think on the people that we have in this race right now, as far as that are already serving, I think there's a disconnect between who we are, because I still have a lot of family and I still help a lot of them. But there's been some rulings that have been like, what were y'all thinking? These people are struggling to pay their bills. And I still have family that calls me, say, hey, can you help me because this and this is going on? And I get it. And I'm blessed that I can do that. But it's hard when you think about, am I going to fill up my tank with gas or pay the rent? Am I going to pay the light bill or put food on the table? But I have to get to work, so I have to put gas in the car, or do I walk? And it's an unfair thing that's going on right now. And I believe that there's a lot of things that can change at the mayoral level on down, because again, we have to really take a strong look at this budget and find out where we're spending money. Because, along the way throughout the years, there's been this little good old boy system, right? You get your friends in and you create little jobs, and that's what they call the bureaucracy, right? That's inside of every city government. And nobody really wants to give up those jobs. And so when you get a new mayor in and new city council, they want to keep them people in because maybe it's not that person, but they want to put their boy in. Let's take care of this guy, and you pop them in there because it's really not a whole lot that role has to do that this person can't do. And these are all high-end jobs. But in the meantime, we're freezing the pay of our firefighters, who, by the way, are also our first responders. So if something happens,
they're the first ones there, right?
Yeah, they're the first ones there. And so we're asking them to save our lives. And also, if you think about police officers, we're about 100 short. Okay, but we don't have the money to pay them. And we're losing them to like places like Abilene, Midland, who are paying way more than we are. Because what they're doing is they're taking care of all these bureaucrats while they're freezing the pay of the people who we count on to protect our families. And that's not cool. So I'm in it for that reason. I believe that we need to really start behaving in government. Let's start cutting back the cost of doing the day-to-day, monotonous stuff that should be done at a much lower rate, okay? And then let's start protecting our families, because if you think about it, when you pay your taxes, shouldn't you expect that they would protect you in your home, right? You call 911, there's 30,000 calls that didn't get answered. That's not the police officer's fault. That was up in management. And they had hired the wrong guy, and the city manager refused to get rid of him because, for whatever reason, he felt like, let's just keep him there, even though they knew he was doing a horrible job. And people were leaving because this guy was such a terrible director and stuff, the chief. And so we get stuck with that, right? Those are the remnants that we have to deal with, that if you're calling 911, you're like, nobody's answering. But you're not calling 911 unless there's an emergency, right? So why is it that we're not getting a response? I mean, and it's crazier as you get into, let's talk about some other decisions they made, and what this last one that they did, and I'll go through it. But, they decided, oh, you know what, the alleys, that's your problem too, at, the utilities, right? So if a pipe busts in the alleyway, it's supposed to be the city that paid it. And they said, no, let's put it on the homeowner. And let's just shift it back out there. Again, our taxes are supposed to pay that. But they're like, well, that's $900. Let's save $900,000. Let's save it. And what does that do? Now, let's say you are, take a shower, all of a sudden everything backs up into your, so you go and it's not in your yard, it's in the backyard. it's in the alley. Now, that alley does not belong to us, even though that pipe going into the main sewer line is. So that pipe, that little length of alleyway where that pipe is going under, that's usually going to cost you anywhere from $3,500 to $6,500 for regular residents, and up to $12,000, $13,000 if you have a concrete alleyway. Okay, so but guess who can't afford that? Anybody that makes on lower income and up to middle income.
I'd say most Lubbock people.
Most Lubbock people can't, right? And now guess why those pipes break in the first place? Because we work for, we put up power lines. The company, this Texas Power Supplier I work for, we put up power lines. And we go through those alleyways, and our trucks are heavy. We have diggers, we have, Vactrons, we have pole trucks, and sometimes 2 or 3 at a time. And they're not light, man. They're not like regular trucks, and they're going in and out of there. Now, we aren't even the heaviest trucks that go through there. Think about that for a second. Then you have all this major equipment, but like the trash trucks, those things weigh 3 times what our trucks weigh, and they're going up and down there. Now, what happens when you keep disturbing the ground in an alleyway, right? It's common sense that's going to happen.
So who's making those decisions?
The city council. And see, both of the opponents that I had voted for that. And one of them at first said, well, we didn't think it was going to be that big of a deal. And the other one says, well, that's okay. I'll do it again if I had to. Well, the one that said he'd do it again, later on when he was getting all these complaints and realized, I'm in a mayor's race. What was I thinking? So he teams up with excuse me. He teams up with a city councilwoman that also voted on it, and they said, hey, let's undo this. And so then he goes up and says, well, he's beating his chest. Well, look what I did. I'm going to go ahead and take a vote to reverse what I did in the first place. Everybody clap for me and hooray for me, right? And I'm thinking, why did you do that in the first place? That was something that should have been tabled. And they should have taken some sort of an analytical view at what this was going to impact John Q. Public, right? All of us, and see if that was worth doing. Because you can't just do that to the taxpayer, man, especially when they have a vote and they're going to vote you out. And they realize that. But it shouldn't even be because of the vote.
Isn't that coming up?
Yeah, that is.
City council?
Yes. And so they're going to reverse something that they did. And of course, they're going to say, look how great I am. You're great because you reversed a dumb decision.
What are they going to reverse? What is it?
I'm hoping up in the next, he had a press conference. And I think in the next meeting, he needs to do it right away.
So, also, is this an outcome? Because we've had Adam on before, and we talked about how the voter turnout is low. Mm-hmm. No one participates in the city council meetings. Is that a result of people just not showing up and voting?
Yeah, and I'll tell you, we need more people to vote. Let's just be honest, and I'll tell you, and you saw this last vote, right? And this is a countywide election. We have 186,000 or so people that are registered to vote.
190,000.
Okay, that are registered to vote, right? Now think about this. How many turned out for this past election? Less than 10%. Okay, so that means that 90% of the people don't have a voice, and people get upset about things, and I always tell them, did you vote? I know, I'm just fed up with it. No, don't be fed up. Be fed up with it. Okay, I get that. But vote because you're fed up, right? If we were to all vote, then it would truly be the will of the people.
Power of the people.
And if you look on my signs, I put "We the People."
You got that written down right here.
Yes. And the reason I put that on there is we got to take, this is not a government-run city. It's people-run. And the one thing I tell people, if I'm elected, I'm not a mayoral leader. I'm a mayoral servant. I am a representative of what the people want to see. And so regardless of what, is going on out there, I have to look at all of you and make a decision that I can look at myself in the mirror for. There's too much at stake with all of your lives to do something that careless. Because you guys have, we have children to support, right? We have grandkids, we have family members. We have to put food on the table. We have jobs. We can't afford to not be able to live because the government is making it impossible to do so. And right now, that's what's happening. So my whole thing is change. If you like what's going on in council right now, I'm not your guy. I tell people that. If you're happy with it, then vote for it again.
All the people voting are probably happy with it.
This is true, and we have to change that. And that's why we have to reach out across the aisle and start talking to people. That's one thing. The one thing I love about this race here, this particular one, it's nonpartisan. So it doesn't matter who you are or whatever. You get to vote in that election. Everybody, whether they're liberal, whether they're conservative, libertarian, whatever it is, they all get to cast a vote for the same person the first time, right? So you get to look at everybody's qualifications and what everybody's principles are. And people like you, when you put on these podcasts, it gives them an opportunity to hear what's happening. And I think that's very important. Another thing that's on my flag, on my sign is the Luca flag. And let me tell you what that is. Okay, that's and I'm a faith guy. So that is it's got 3 stars on it, and that's the Trinity. That represents the Trinity. And then it has it's like a flag, right? And the flag represents the Constitution, which has been the governing document of this country that's made it great. Our veterans died for that flag and what it represents for us, and all the way through, if you think about it. And that's everything that they fought for. And then it's a chat bubble. And it means let's talk about these things. Let's talk about what's going to affect our country and how we can make a difference, because we have to take action ourselves, guys. We can't just expect the government to act right, because they don't.
And this is Latinos
United. for conservative action.
Not to be confused with the other Luca.
No, the other Luca. Yeah, the other one's pretty cool too.
We have a lot of them that with the other Luca, a lot of them come on this podcast.
Oh yeah.
So we don't want to confuse the two.
And that's a cool organization too, but way different. I mean, that's an art thing, and in fact, we were talking about that earlier, and they do some pretty cool stuff, and we have some people that are in Luca. So it's kind of interesting. So we really try hard, with Luca to make everything accommodating for everybody. For instance, we just recently had what we call the celebrating the Trailblazers event, and we made it free for everybody. So we funded all of it so we can get people together and let them meet our congressman, our sheriff, our state representative, and several other people. And you made it like a banquet. So we treated them like kings and queens in there, because they are. I mean, I want people to go in there and know that we care about them as much as anybody else. So we pulled no stops, and I'm going to do another one actually to do this, and we're going to do that on April 23rd. So, and we want to invite as many people, and then what we're doing is we're sharing information about what's out there, right? Like, a lot of things, if you think about with Latinos, let's say they're wanting to buy a new house. A lot of them are afraid to, because they just don't understand what's out there for them and what banks are willing to do them and not. And, they don't understand how real estate works, or, because there's really nobody teaching them, because apparently, this world doesn't think it's important to share that kind of information, which I think is the best thing to do, as much as some other things that I think are further down the line. But I really think that it's important that everybody understands the resources that are available to them and their families to help them, like, get into a nice home or a nice car. How do you do these things? What are the steps? And then, like, how do I I don't like what's going on here and here. Who do I talk to? Well, there's this representative. He'll tell you how to work within the government and how that helps you. Here's somebody that's local that can help you within the city government. Here are the numbers that you need to know if you want to serve on a board or a commission, because we don't have enough Latinos and African Americans or anything that really understand how that works. And let's involve everybody. I want everybody to come in and see all of these things that are open to them, so then they can start working on making policy differences, and maybe we get more Latinos running for mayor, more Latinos running for city council, more and more African Americans, more minorities, because I think we are all in that same basket. Because at the same time, all of us, and that's why I say, I think there's a disconnect between the people that are in there and us.
Well, that's something
because they didn't
Adam
grow up the
did
same way.
Say there is a huge disconnect.
Yeah, and there is, and we have to let people know. Hey, you know what? I grew up poor as I'll get out, and I always tell people, I'd come home and my mom would be like, hey, you need to start moving this stuff because we have to move. And I know what it's like, having to go without utilities. I know what it's like having to have a few nights without food, having to go to my grandma's house or someplace else to take showers because we are, power's out. And I know what it's like to struggle. And as I went through that struggle with my family, I started appreciating the hard work that my family did to even have a roof over our head, even if we had to move from one to the other. I never really knew I was poor until I got into like high school and stuff, and you started getting around rich people because everybody was like us. But when you go through that, and I don't regret any of it, I'm proud of it, because it makes me understand everybody out there a little bit more. I don't sympathize with people, I empathize with them. And it's a different thing, because when you can empathize with people, you know the struggle, and you can make decisions based on those struggles that you felt yourself, right? And if you don't have that that to empathize, which I really don't think some of these people do, then you look at people differently, and instead of respecting them for that struggle and being able to overcome it because they're heroes in their family, you start looking at you see people looking down on you, and I've experienced that throughout my life, and I've seen it. But the one thing I always tell people, you'll never see me do it, because it's wrong, and I'm no better than anybody else. Whether I have a penny to my name or $1 million to my name, I'm no different, because I went through that same struggle, man. And you know what? I came out a better person because of it. And there are things I understand that they never will, and I think that's my superpower. Really is. And that's why I'm in this race, because somebody has to step up and say enough is enough. And it's not just about Latinos, it's about every minority, and not even about the minorities. Let's talk about the people that, of any color, that just have to go through that struggle and are really wanting to make a better life for their parents, for themselves. And some of them want to go to college, and like we were talking about before, some of them want to go even to a trade school, just have some sort of a plan for the future where they can, meet the bills and have a life that they're proud of, for their kids. Okay, and that's another thing. I think about all those times when we were growing up. We worked Olympia and stuff. I mean, if you've worked it, you know it. If you don't, then they're like, "What's he talking about?" But that's how we put clothes on our backs for school. And man, we were 7, 8, 9 years old. And I'm cool with that because I got to experience it. And people look at me like, what are you talking about? Well, then if you don't know, you don't know. But I think that's what I bring to this race. I'm somebody that actually really, really cares about the people out here. And that's what I tell people. I've been involved in politics for over 40 years. And I've really worked hard because I want to leave this place. When God calls me home, and it may be in 5 years, 10 minutes, you never know, or 50 years. I want people to say, you know what, at least he worked hard to make this a better place. So you're not going to see me walk in there and be a status quo guy. I'm not that guy. I'm the guy that's going to say stuff, and I'm the guy that's going to take action against it. And that's, again, Luca, that's when we say conservative action. And by conservative, it's the same family values I grew up with that I believe that everybody should apply when you're in government. Because if you act like that in your governance, then you're spending your money properly. And it's benefiting everybody, not just certain people in certain classes.
Can you talk to me about this conservative? I think people get scared of conservative and liberal. Can you kind of
okay? Well, and here's the thing, and it's so different right now, and I hate that it is because both sides have kind of gone way out there, right? Mm-hmm. And some people, and so you're either way over here or way over here, and you miss all these people in the middle. Okay, and with me, what my version of conservative is like a lot of, like if you hear some people, well, we don't want to pay extra money to the police because that's money and they should know what they got into. Well, to me, that's ridiculous. To me, I'm saying if you're going to spend money and it's the taxpayer dollars, you need to do it wisely. Act like you're one of them because you should be. One of the people that is having to break their backs to earn the money to pay the taxes that you're governing from. And do the right thing. Do what is in the best interest of everybody that you serve. And don't spend like, you've got tons of money to spend and like, you just won the lottery. And I think that's what's happening right now. So in conservative, there's two things I am. I'm socially conservative, so I'm obviously somebody that believes that, with me, my values are based off of church values. And I don't apologize for that. A lot of people, say, well, you're just, a Bible reader. You don't see me going around, trying to quote scripture and pointing. I'm not that guy. I'm the guy that is going to try to live my life the way God intended me to live it, right? And that I'm going to make sure that you can do the same. I don't want the government walking into your house and telling you how to live. I don't want that. It's wrong. I don't want them telling you how to raise your kids. Okay, that's wrong. And you're seeing that in a lot of places. And these are in both directions, right? Telling you how you're supposed to worship. Because we all, and again, I have, I know who my God is, and that's it. But there may be somebody that's Muslim or that's Jewish or whatever, and they know who their God is. They're Catholic. It doesn't matter. And who am I to say, no, you have to worship like me? Or, you're not this, you're not this. That's not, a conservative action means you're going to do everything the way the values that were instilled in you dictates. Now, if that means that, oh, well, this religion says a 9-year-old can marry a 55-year-old, I'm going to say, well, that's where I draw the line because that's a child. Okay. And I don't care what the religion is or whatever. That's a practice that you go back to wherever that they allow that. You do that there, not here, because we're going to protect children.
Seems pretty fair.
That's one. You know what I'm saying? Because these, and here's the other thing, and let's talk about kids for a second. They're being trained to like, oh, you have to transition, or and they want parents, to, in so many places to say, oh, well, he was, he's a girl in a boy's body. Let's transition him. I'm not going to go for that at all.
Is
ever.
That going on here?
It's going on in Texas. We actually fought, and I'll tell you some things. And that there's actually legislation that stopped that. And there's a LGBTQ plus church that was out of Fort Worth. It's Galileo Church. What they were doing is when the legislation stopped that from happening, because they could transition all the way down to 4 years old. and Texas stopped it. So Galileo Church was telling these parents, hey, ship them to another state. We'll pay $1,000 and we'll pay you to do that. So our organization went out there and we petitioned all of that, and we got really, pretty heavy about it. And our state representative, Dustin Burrows, is actually going to carry legislation to close that loophole, because these are kids. They don't know that. Let them be kids. Don't put your political agenda on a child. That's where I draw the line, because these are children. And that's another role that I think government should have, is these children should not be groomed to be a certain thing. You're supposed to, when you get them into a school, you're supposed to teach them reading, writing, arithmetic, whatever. Another thing our organization did, and I will put a major stop to it, there were books that were clearly pornographic that
Which
were in
one?
schools. I can't think of the titles of it. There were several of them. There was over 197. In fact, I know right now for a fact that they're still in our public library here. And when I do get those, I'm going to send you I'll send you an email so you can see all of them. Yeah. It's sad. It's
and
really.
So when you say pornographic, are you talking about like smut books, or are you talking about just like the content? Was it like romantic? Was it graphic? And
it's
like
very,
violence?
very graphic, and it's so they're using cartoons, right? And one of them was an incest book, and it talked about how the uncle touched her in a certain way, and it actually felt kind of nice, and then they talked about. And it takes you all the way through that.
And that's in Texas?
It's across the country. Texas we actually removed this and a couple others. There was another one that
the book was pro-incest?
Yes,
pro-incest. Or was it about a girl's like testimony about...
It's pro-incest. I mean, when you read through it, it talks about how beautiful the experience was and stuff. It is sad. There's another book that was out there that talks about, this was a stranger, and they're telling me not to talk to strangers, but this one is nice, and he touched me, and they said it's not supposed to touch me there, but it feels good. And then next thing you know, it walks you through rape. Mm-hmm. And these are comic type book. Animated type books that make it seem like it's okay for these kids to do these things, and kids were taking them home. So we found them. We went to, and here's the thing, we went up to the school districts. We gathered a bunch of parents, showed them the books. They came in droves, and we started reading from the book. I mean, our people started reading from the book, and they made them stop. They said, stop that. We are not allowing that type of conversation in the school board meeting. They're like, well, why do you allow it for our children? This is in the third grade. This book was checked out by a third grader. And that's how really sad it is. So by the time this school board meeting was over, and we did this in 5 different locations, but Fort Worth Independent School District, we got a lot of coverage for that. But when we went in there, they removed those 3 books, and then we were going to start bringing others, and they said, instead of doing that, we're going to shut down the library for 10 days, and we're going to pull out all these other 189 titles or whatever that there were, and they did. But then the same LGBTQ people came in and they petitioned against that, and they said, no, you need to put those books back in. It's only fair. These children should not be deprived of doing it. You're censoring. These are children. It's not called censorship, it's called common sense. These children have no business being exposed to this type of thing. None.
I understand you doing that in school. Uh-huh. Because, you send your kid to school.
Right.
What's the problem with it being in a public library?
No, well, the public library it's in the children's section.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so why is a city allowing this in a public library in the children's section? If you're going to have that, put it behind an adult. You know what I mean?
Put a warning.
Children do not need to be exposed to this stuff. Let them develop and become who they want. If you see a little boy playing with a doll at 3 years old, that doesn't mean he wants to be a girl. It just means their boys are curious. Eventually, they're going to drop the doll for a football or something. And who knows? And if they don't, they don't. But let them make that decision when they're adults. Because you know what? You won't, you don't let them smoke or drink or get tattoos at that age. Why are you exposing them to pornography?
That's fair enough. What about if a parent signs off, says, I will allow you to?
Because I did want to kind of touch base on that, because I heard you say like about these children being groomed into like, pursuing, like changing genders and stuff like that. But there are, I understand there is that, because that is, I have seen that's kind of like pushing an agenda. You know what I mean?
Is.
Of people, I see that.
Yes.
But what happens? I mean, these little humans. You know what I mean? As children, naive, just things are so simple in a child's mind. And these things are so much more complex than they will ever understand until it's time to understand.
Right.
But because of it being so simple, if a child is begging, pleading, is year after year, like say this behavior starts at 3.
Right.
Like how you said, it starts off with a boy just taking after his mom. He wants to play with dolls. He wants to play in her clothes. That's just kids playing dress up and whatever, and they might drop it. But what if that little boy is like 8 or 9 and has just consistently pursued that? And I understand, like letting a kid be a kid and just kind of letting them just have childlike wonder. And I understand trying to direct your child maybe into different things, like if they're into the dolls and stuff, maybe show them sports and things, you know what I mean? But what happens in the case of that child still just as simple as a child's mind is, if they are sure of something, they are sure of something. At what point is a parent neglecting that child's mental needs?
I will tell you.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get it. And it's one thing.
Because that is such a touchy subject.
And it really is. And it's one thing. And I will tell you this, because when you start changing their physiological and their biological outlay, you have completely changed everything about them. We have a couple of members of Luca that joined in the Fort Worth area that were transitioned, and they hate that they did it and the pain that their body's in. And you get more and more and more. Because right now it's so new and fresh, because it's a political agenda that was played brilliantly by this group, this organization, and they're transitioning. And and if you think about that, there's no empirical evidence from any of these yet on what that has done to a lot of these kids, except now you're starting to see a lot of them that are having a lot of, because your body, right, it's not intended to be the opposite sex, and you're never going to fully be that opposite sex. And that's why they say, well, if you look at their literature and everything they're saying is, well, the male parts don't necessarily mean they're male. If they say they're female, they're female. Well, let them identify as a female rather than transition them. If you're saying that part doesn't matter, then and they want to be a boy, then let them dress like a boy. And then when they turn of an adult age where they can make that decision on their own, then let them make that decision.
Mm-hmm.
But
was that 18?
Yeah, I guess it'd be 18. And honestly,
because that's what I wonder as well. Because I've also kind of read up on this, as in like the beginning of transition. Mm-hmm. I do agree. Before the age of 10, before the age of 12, it's so young. It's so young to alter somebody's physiology before puberty. You know what I mean? But I've also kind of learned that the earlier you do transition, maybe the better that you will transition. You know what I mean? And I say that as in, that is more so for gender affirmation and just mental clarity, as in like you seeing on the outside what you feel in the inside. So these transitions might need to start at the age of like 14, 15, before puberty has really, really hit. I have also read about people who have struggled with like severe mental illness or severe whatever the effects are of these things, where they transition too late because they finally have the freedom to.
Right.
And they struggle with identity. They struggle, you know what I mean? And they just fall into this, you know what I mean? I don't know. It's just so, it's weird, but I don't know if I understand how things should be regulated to an extent, but also we can't necessarily like wipe it away.
Here's my answer to that. And if you go through the history of our country, all the way through and up until when all of this LGBTQ movement really started, and you see the number of children that actually wanted to transition and all of the help they got, and how many of them changed their minds. The political climate is steering them in that direction. That's what's happening. And all of the training that they're getting in the schools right now from teachers that are steering them in that direction. It's happening all over the
There's
place.
no
When you
denying
say
that.
so, what do you mean by training?
Well,
Like-
they're being,
Or is it like more
it's-
so like
it's
being embraced?
It's not even being embraced. It's like they're being steered in that direction, and it's happening all over the place in California, and finally, and here's what I'm talking about here. A
But
lot of the
has that happened here in Lubbock?
It's happening here in Lubbock too in some schools, and that's what I'm saying. But more than anything, all across the country, it's happening, and you get more parents that are putting up all of these things to embrace that. I mean, not parents, the teachers that embrace that, and they're being steered in that because of a political climate. It was never embraced before, and it was one of those things where when you get to school again, you would, you didn't have those transgender study hours or whatever. They're pushing an agenda on our children, and that's what's causing a lot of this, because then children start becoming curious. Well, maybe I don't know this. And it should not be encouraged to push them in that direction. That's why what I'm saying is, if they just let kids be kids and stop, teasing them with one side of the agenda or another, you would see that happen far more infrequently than you do now.
So you want in schools, let's learn math, let's learn English.
Yeah, let's learn school.
That's
Why
it.
are you
Yeah, it's fair to say.
introducing any of that? These are children. Leave the political stuff out of it.
That's fair.
Don't put transgender study hours in there. Why are you doing that? These are children.
Are there schools in town that have transgender
they have had those study hours all over different schools in Lubbock.
What do you mean by study hours?
Well, they have the transgenders go and drag and read to kids, and it's happened several times in Lubbock.
Here in Lubbock?
In Lubbock.
And that's considered a transgender study hour.
That's what they
versus,
call
like,
it.
Reading.
Yeah, it's
kids.
that's what they call it. That's how they got it into the schools, and they're reading books as. Okay, let me ask you this: when you
But
have
in what way is that? I'm sorry.
Well, no. Let me ask you this: if there's a girl that's coming from a strip club in her gear, are you going to let her around? If you have a son, are you going to let her around?
Well,
with
that's
6, 5?
different.
No, it's not, because they're
Yeah.
dressed the same way. They are dressed in the same stuff. They're it is very, very bad. What they're wearing is very revealing, and they're all made up. So that belongs.
But in that same respect, a stripper is a career choice.
But so is being a transgender. It is a lifestyle choice
That's
for
a
that person.
lifestyle
For
choice.
that person, why
Yeah.
are you exploiting children to it? A stripper is a career choice for adults. If you want to be a transgender, then go to transgender clubs and be a transgender. Don't bring it to our children.
Okay, are you talking about transgenders or are you talking about drag queens?
The drag queen. Well, that's a drag queen study. It's the same thing.
So they put it under transgender.
They put it under transgender. Oh, it's a drag queen study hour. It starts steering people in that direction. It's not necessarily. All right, it's a drag queen study hour.
Telling a story.
Yeah, it's a drag queen telling a story. I'm sorry, but it's the same thing because most of them are trans.
Not.
Well,
all right.
It's not.
So can I ask you
I know
this?
plenty of homeboys
Oh,
that
yeah.
dress up as drag queens.
Well,
It's
but they
not-
shouldn't be reading to children.
Okay, let me ask you this.
in glittery dresses and sequins.
What?
and
But they're not wearing glittery dresses and sequins. They're wearing,
In fairness to this conversation, as mayor, they have the power to ban that.
Well, and that's the thing. It's at this stage, I don't know, because again, we follow state law just as much as anything else.
Right.
I'm just telling you things that I'm concerned about,
Yeah.
that
Fair
I'm
enough.
seeing,
No, that's fair
and I really wish we would let children be children.
I
That's
see
a-
that.
that's a
I see
fair
that
statement.
completely. I just.
But I see I see your point.
You use two completely different terms.
I did. Yeah.
And although I might not be as educated on like every single technicality
Right.
of the gender spectrum and
Right.
that spectrum, I know transgender and a drag queen are completely.
Oh yeah,
different things.
they normally are, but in a lot of places they've used a lot of the transgenders to go in there, and there have actually been several incidences in other states, not necessarily this one, thank goodness, of sexual assaults that originate from that, and it's sad, and that's something that we have to be aware of, because if there's a possibility of something like that happening, we have to protect these kids. We are exposing our children too much to political agendas.
Can I ask you, because you have Protect Our Children, and this is one of
Yes.
the ways. Also, somebody brought this up. We have more questions that
Sure.
our followers brought, but one of them was, how are you gonna stop the sex trafficking that's happening in Lubbock? Because it's a big issue here.
It's a huge issue here.
Protect our children. So.
Yes, yeah, it is a huge issue here, and part of the reason it hasn't been that way is because we are and I don't know what led to this, but
sorry, can you hear me good?
Can you hear me okay?
My headphones are down.
And I can hear you.
Clear, yeah.
Okay, good. We really need to start focusing in on a lot of that, and one of the ways to do that is to have the personnel to go in there and act like a girl, and start messaging these people. There was an experience that meant that I watched one time on a podcast where these people went in and they showed how if they created a little teen girl's name or whatever, and it wasn't even a teen, she was like 12 years old. Yeah. And they made it like this little pretty girl or whatever that they said was 12 years old.
Like a To Catch a Predator type situation.
And so that's how a lot of them catch them, is all of a sudden all these people want to meet, and they start. How
easy it is. To
yes, and so then they start feeding that a little bit more until they finally say, okay, well, let's go ahead and let's meet. And in an innocent way, and then you catch them, and then they start giving up other people that are like them, and that's one of the ways you do it. But more than that, if we get more people, we have to, per capita, we have to have the number of police officers we need. I mean, when we're that high up in violent crime, and your children can't even go outside without fear of this, and you have a lot of little girls that are bullied into certain situations, and they're afraid to tell their parents, and boys too, and they're afraid to tell their parents because these people threaten them with violence. Well, one of the things that we're starting to do, and in fact, me and Tim we're talking about this today, through Luca, we're going to start putting out publications that that are going to be addressed to these kids of those ages on how to talk to your parents about things, and don't be afraid, and do this and this. And we're going to be working with, the sheriff's department. I spoke with him, and then with our state reps and stuff, and making sure we have the material that is necessary, that is being proven effective, because a lot of the problems when you see this is that the kids are afraid to say anything.
So I was going to ask you about that, because that's a really good, that's true, and I feel like we see that later on in life, people will just have this clarity, and they will just, hey, this happened to me when I was young.
Right.
And it's unfortunately sometimes just too late to really pursue those things or to get justice for some people, unfortunately. Right. So, of course, like, what were you saying earlier? Like, kids were going to get material to talk to their parents?
Yeah, you start talking to kids, and you give them like public little like almost a comic book type deal,
right?
And as they get older and stuff, you get them like stuff with anime and stuff, and you actually create even like video games or something out of it, where it talks about the dangers going here and there, and it implants in their head in a way that they understand, and you even do little animated videos that help them to know who to
learn
talk
how to communicate.
Yeah, how to communicate this information.
So I have a question. Would you guys banning pornographic literature, like the one you said about children being groomed or being raped, obviously it would be jarring for a school to literally have a book in their library about pro-rape, pro-whatever. Right. So I'm pretty sure these paragraphs that you guys read were very, very graphic and jarring.
The whole books were, all of them.
But as a youth, I remember reading really, really heavy literature about drug use, about being groomed. I remember reading Lolita when I was young, and even there was one up here. It was Ellen something. I remember reading a lot of her books, and being so young and absorbing that information. As I grew older, as I met people along the way, I was able to decipher these things. You know what I mean? As in, like, understand, like, I know what that is because I've read it here before. And so I really wonder, like, sometimes if banning literature like that,
there's a difference.
Because, I mean, I know things are jarring, but reality is jarring.
It is.
Sex trafficking is jarring.
Yeah, but here's the difference, is these are written as grooming tools. Those were written as preventative tools. And I remember I read a lot of those same books.
And as a parent, finding your child's book, or as an educator, finding this book and seeing this, is it not the job of the educator, of the parent, or the school district to be like, yes, this is literature, and this is what it's talking about, this is what it's warning about, so these graphic...
Again, these are grooming tools, and it's clearly grooming tools. And the way they were written is to encourage kids. Oh, it's okay to go talk to a stranger. It's okay to let them touch you this way. It's normal. And that's what these things were teaching. I mean, if you go grab these, and if you have a child of your own and you start reading through it,
send me those titles.
I will send you the titles.
I am literally trying to really think about
when you start reading it,
how that would slip through the cracks of it being.
It's not even slipping through the cracks. I will tell you this. You know what the interesting thing about this is? The State Board of Education, they have stuff that they send through.
Yeah.
Now, that State Board of Education was primarily conservative up until one of them retired. And then you had a radical left-winger that jumped in and won out of Austin. And that's when all of these started appearing. Because we had a 4-3 vote that allowed these to go through. Now, still, the schools can remove them, but they're approved to go through. And then I know that the library thing is also situated differently, and they're supposed to be safeguarded as well. So as things are shipped into the libraries, they're supposed to have oversight over there. And a lot of them just push it on through and say, let's not worry about it. So that's where we end up having to deal with this kind of stuff. When you read these books, it's going to make you very angry.
Well, yeah, you can
as
send
a parent.
You can send us a link, and we'll put it in the description of this episode.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And in fact, I will do that. I know some. In fact, there was a couple of friends of mine that really went after these, and they started checking these out and looking at. In fact, when I saw it, it made me angry. Because again, when you start talking about a lot of this trafficking and stuff, when kids start thinking this kind of thing is normal and they're reading about it being normal and that it's okay, that's another reason they don't say anything. And then by the time they get so involved in it that they don't know what to do, it's too late. They have been used over and over and over and over again by people that mean harm to them. So yeah, we are definitely going to find as many avenues as we can. As a mayor, I would want to work directly with our police force and say, what do we need? And get them the training, the training from organizations that are successful at that. One of the greatest ones that there is out of Waco, Texas. And I intend to go out there. There's a big seminar that they're going to have, and they invited me to go up there because of Luca, and they want Luca to, because Luca wants to be as big of a part of this as possible, where they are catching predators and they're doing it better than anybody, and when you have people like Jim Caviezel and all of these others that have taken part in this, and next thing you know, it becomes a national awareness action. But another thing that there is like there are little signs on the, where they do, and I think more and more of these kids need to understand that, because if they're being put in a situation that they don't understand, at least they know what that universal sign is. I want as many people to know what that universal sign is. There are a lot of things we can do to help curb the possibility of these things happening. One thing I want to teach and make very clear to even females and even now males, as you get older, when a lot of them are at a club and somebody drops something in their drink, and all of a sudden they're in a different world altogether. And so this is a different world, a far different world than what I grew up in, than even what y'all.
I completely agree with that. And I feel like with as unfortunately as accessible as the world is to children nowadays, because I remember being young and how accessible things were on the internet to me, so I can only imagine.
It's sad.
I honestly feel like a big way to educate these kids is just by being transparent. And I know you said let kids be kids, but
oh no, you absolutely. But shouldn't that be done at the parental level rather than? It
should be, yeah.
And that I will totally agree with you on there. We need, we can't shelter our kids anymore. We can't. And you have to let them know that these are things that are out there. And I'll tell you another thing.
Like, people are going to approach
They're
you this
going to do this. They're going to do this.
They're going to tell you this. They're going to manipulate you into this.
Right.
Yes,
and these tools that we're going to, in fact, you led right into what we're doing. These tools that we're creating for Luca is for parents to have as much it is for kids. And this is something where it allows them to see what is out there, and so they can help share with their children in a way that they will understand it.
And I agree, yes, things beyond the parental level, but also not all of these children are going to get the same type of attention at home, and they get a lot of that nurturing and a lot of that growth from their educators and from their school systems.
Yes, and that's why we need the school systems to do the right thing. And that's a different board altogether. That's not, and it has nothing to do with the mayor. That's a school board. But the schools really need to stop focusing on political agendas and start focusing on stuff like that, because we do live in a very ugly world right now where people are more predatorial than anything else all across the country. And it is a high yielding profitable industry, this human and child trafficking, and it's a shame.
It's sick.
But it is what it is, and we have to do everything we can at our level to combat that. And that's one of the things that I want to do as a mayor is make sure that we can arm with as much information the parents and everybody else. We've got to stop leaving parents out of anything that we're doing. That's one of the reasons we're doing it through Luca. If I'm involved in any way whatsoever, if I win this race, I'm going to make sure that we do everything we can to help educate parents, and every resource that's available to them, every opportunity that they have to serve in ways that they can explain things better to kids, and also provide them for the schools and bring people in that will help the schools and help kids in schools, maybe have programs that these children can learn from, and work as a partnership rather than against each other or as two separate entities, because these are the same people, right? Everybody in this city, has at one time or another gone to a school, or they have kids that have gone to school, or they have family, whatever. And so this isn't just about the city, it's about the schools too. It's about the universities. I mean, we have a lot of kids that come into tech, a lot of students, and coming into the city expecting it to be a Bible Belt, just pretty cool thing or whatever. And then you start seeing all of this violent crime and stuff that's happening, and they become part of, a victim of some of that violence. And they're very young. They don't know how to interact with that. I mean, just like these kids don't. There are a lot of very mean and ugly, scary people that want to do us harm, and especially children. So we have to find a way to take that target off their back by putting enough protection around them to make them inaccessible as possible, I should say, to the people that mean them harm. I would love for our children to be able to play in the front yard again, or at parks without having to worry about who's going to come by and do something stupid.
Amen to that.
It's just, because I'm a teacher, so, because this is my first year teaching, so I've kind of gotten used to seeing how, kids are today. Yeah. Kids, I mean, compared to when I was in middle school, we had MTV2.
Right.
We had MTV. We had
a little milder version.
We had Sucker Free Sundays.
We had, there was social media, but it was MySpace and the beginnings of Facebook, Instagram, but it's not what it is today. It's so hard to, because kids right now, and we live in the TikTok world.
Yeah.
And many things are, pushed out there, and it's so hard to
It's almost hard to when you say come back, it's almost hard to scale things back to a traditional level, or to a core value level, like you said, because it's never going to be like it was then. Yeah.
You know what I'm really, I am so glad I met you today, and the questions you're asking, because you're very real.
And I hope I'm not coming off disrespectful.
No, absolutely. I
truly see this as a privilege to get to sit across from somebody.
Let me tell you this. I love that you're here, because it's important that we see the differences, right? Because it's not the same anymore. I have to be able to reach out to people that have those very questions, and the fact that you're asking them, they deserve an answer, because how many people are like you that are asking those same questions, and they're legitimate questions. It's not at all disrespectful. In fact, we should expect them all the time. And one thing that I do want to do, if I win this race, I want to get you on a panel. I want to get you guys on panel, and I want to get other people. I don't want to just get people in suits that don't know what the heck's going on. I want people that are real to tell me, hey, this is going on, and I don't know how to reach them, and let's find a way to reach the people that you're talking about, because I'm not familiar with that.
Well, they're listening, I'll tell you that.
Well, and that's great.
Yeah.
And I
Like
hope they are.
Whenever Roy because he lets us know, like, oh, our guest is so-and-so
Yeah.
or whatever. And he had told us we were going to have some mayoral candidates.
That's
And-
awesome. I think all of them should come.
Try
I hope
more.
so.
Yeah, he's trying to reach out, because first off, the podcast we had with Adam was very insightful,
Mm-hmm.
but it was also I was part of the little baby percentage that voted in the last vote. But when he told us the population of Lubbock, and of that population who is registered,
Mm-hmm.
and of that registered population who voted, and of that percentage who voted,
Right.
the demographics of them.
Yeah.
And his big thing was like, we cannot get mad at this when these people that are voting are only voting for what they know.
Right.
So we have to do our part to educate people on why it's important to vote locally. So that really struck a chord with me. So whenever Roy let us know that you were going to be on today, he just sent us like a little flyer that you had, and then he sent us like a picture of you and a quote that you had.
Right.
And so I told him, I was like, okay, what we should do is we should get on our Instagrams and just let people know who is going to be on today,
Right.
that they're running for not the thing.
Yeah.
The
mayoral race. Yeah.
And I was like, we should just, since we have this platform, I know people our ages,
Sure.
like they might not necessarily be going to city council or, whatever.
Oh, yeah.
But I feel like since we have this platform, I would love for people to please let us filter these questions into you.
Oh,
You know what
and I
mean?
want you to.
So we
Yeah.
we each do have little questions that people anonymously send us or
Right.
whatever,
And I'll tell you something else that's interesting. 10 years ago, I get and it's all political stuff. And now, because of how well I'm obviously doing in this, one of my opponents felt it was important that they post something up there. Oh, he's got this criminal record or whatever, and all that was disproven. And here's the thing, if you're Latino and you're going to run for something, or you start, elevating, there's going to be people that don't like it, and that's okay. I get that. I don't care. But there were some things that came out against me, 10 years ago when I had to disprove them, and it was all completely false. In fact, they attacked me and several other Latino leaders during that time, and they said, well, these guys are going too fast, let's knock them. And it was completely political. But because there was this quote, I did all of these things, that were clearly proven wrong. They're bringing it back up 10 years down the road. Now, they did the same thing to Trump. If you think about it, so they're coming after me.
It got brought up to me.
Yeah, okay. And so I obviously didn't do it. And in fact, I'll tell you, it's interesting
It
because
literally was something sent to me when I told them you were coming
yeah,
on.
and here's proof, and I'll show you here that that's my criminal record.
Let's look. There you go.
Nothing. And but it was a political attack. Everybody knew it was a political attack, and it was gone, but it popped up on the Google. I thought I took a pretty good mugshot, but it is what it is. I'm not but I'm not going to back down. I was not raised that way. Okay, I don't back down, and I'm not going to sit here and blow smoke up anybody's butt. I'm not trying to hide it. Here it is. I didn't do anything, but if I did something, I own it. I said, yeah, that was me, because that's who I am. That's how I was raised, and you know what? That makes me normal like everybody else. But it's just sad that people feel they need to attack somebody because they're, what their policy is and what they're trying to do is not resonating with the people. Okay. But they don't want me, who is resonating with people, to be in the mayoral seat. I had one lady that is a member of a team of one of my opponents who said, well, you need to run for city council 2. I'm like, well, I don't live in 2. And why would I run for city council? I'm running for mayor. I said, why would I step away from the Trump campaign to run for city council 2? we need an impact at the mayor. No, you don't need to do that. You need to do this and this. I'm like, who named you God over my life? I'm not going to do that. And so she got real upset. And again, she's wanting me to step out so her candidate can win. And she finally, I said, I don't live in 2. She goes, well, you need to move there because your people are there. I'm like, oh, okay. Now I know. And it's sad because I think that race card is the most disgusting thing that can ever be played. But, you have people that are older and they do these stupid things and they don't understand that their ignorance is just so blatantly, disgusting that it makes them an uglier person. But I don't care what color you are. I don't care what religion you are. I don't care where you came from or anything. If you're a good person, you're a good person, and I want to help you. And I don't see color. I don't see any of that stuff because, and it was funny. Sometimes somebody called me one time. I was at the White House and we were walking through there, and all these Antifa was like, you're a racist. You're this and this. You're a white supremacist. I'm like, have you seen my family? First of all, I have black nieces and nephews. I'm Latino, even though I look white. I am fully Latino. And, it's just like every color of the rainbow in my family, I don't see it that way. I've never, ever been that person, but because you support a particular candidate, like everybody that supported Trump, all of a sudden is a racist. Well, that's crazy. It is what it is. And you know what? Let people do what they're going to do, but never back down to somebody that for a hateful reason is trying to tear you down. Because if you follow what your beliefs are and you're doing the right thing, then nothing they say will do any more damage to anybody but themselves. Because people will see it for what it is. I don't care what people say about me. I don't. I care too much about the city and the people in it. I love this community. I was raised in it, and I want to see it get better. So attack me all you want. I'm right here. But I'm not going to back down from those people that think that they can run me out of the mayoral race just because I'm Mexican. I'm sorry. I'm not going to do that.
I love it.
So I lived in Lubbock my whole life, right? I would say the city has changed quite a bit. Yeah. Within the last recent years, we're getting a lot of people. I've met people that moved here from California, from Arizona, Hawaii, Canada.
There's a lot of Canadians.
I've seen a lot of Canadians too.
I've been very surprised how you think all of it's happening in Austin,
it's
in Dallas,
here.
but it's here.
Yeah,
and you see lists. I don't know if it's just like Lubbock shows up on lists of the cheapest cities to live in, the cheapest gas to live in.
Yep.
So, you as mayor, would you say that you're dealing with a huge cultural change within the city?
Absolutely. And that's one of the reasons when I told you that there's going to be people from even different cultures than that. I have several friends from the Indian community, and I just love them to death. They're great people. I have several friends, obviously, from every community you can think of. Tim has introduced me to so many people from so many walks of life.
Shout out to my boy, Avi.
Yeah, Tim is my boy. I love him.
You too.
I'm not, Tim's just a great guy. But we have to be willing to embrace that. But they also need to, when people come to our city, they need to go ahead and behave themselves in a way that is, in other words, be a good citizen. Don't go out there and commit crimes. Don't rob people. Don't, as long as they're being an act, and don't expect us to pay for everything for you for the rest of the time and put you in 5-star hotels like you're seeing in some places. I want people from every race, every walk of life that wants to come to Lubbock to feel welcome here, but I want them to act like a good citizen. And by that I mean, don't do things that are wrong, that tore down your city and bring it here.
Is that why your crime has risen so much?
Oh, yeah.
Because in anywhere, anytime population grows, crime is going to rise.
It is.
So is that why we're seeing a lot of that here?
We're seeing a lot of it here because we don't have enough people in the police force, and we're losing a lot of the good people somewhere else. So we have a lot of people that are lesser trained, that are, overwhelmed in this city, and it definitely is a fault of the governance here that allowed that to happen. And instead of cutting in other places where they should have, they cut the police force. They cut same thing with the firefighters, because there's so much violent crime, we better have first responders that are available, and it's taking them longer and longer, right, to get to where the violence is occurring because they're further away. And it's hard for them to be able to, like, let's say a firefighter gets out there, all of a sudden when you have firefighters out there that their lives are at risk too because those things are still going on, it becomes a very scary place, Lubbock. One of the things I found out, and it's really it shocked me, and I went to the, if you ever go to, there's a gas station that's right across from a cast iron grill. Go in there and they'll have a sign that says, "We do not accept inmate cards." And so I was up there and I saw that, and the girl that was in front of me had asked them, "Why do you have that here?" She said, "Well, they don't have the birth dates or anything, so we have to have that information if they want to buy alcohol." They're like, "But why is that there?" And they said, "Well, when people are getting out of prison in Oklahoma, they dump them off here." I'm like, "Wait, what?" And I was like, "What are you talking about?" They said, "No, yeah, they dump them off here, and they give them they give them money to get on a bus. They put them on a bus and give them a little bit of money, and they send them here, and they're here in Lubbock, and they're encouraged to come straight here. And if you don't think that these people, after a while, are committing crimes, but so we have a lot of people already that are doing that, and then we're dropping off more. Now, why are we allowing that to happen? And why is our council, who can do something about that, not saying something about it? Something has to give. I want to, if we're going to get people in Lubbock, I want them to be productive, people that can contribute to society, right? People that are going to, raise their family and want to do better for their lives and stuff. And we need to do that. But that's not the people we're getting. Like, we are getting some of them, but when you get them coming out of prison, and they're told, "Come right here," they're committing
with
crimes because they don't have
guidance,
no guidance, nothing. Just drop them off and go. That's not good.
It's not a recipe.
Well, and I've
success.
And I've heard the same thing with homelessness. I've always, I can't say if it's true or not, but I've always heard reports about, people in Seattle and LA,
yes,
ship them off here to Texas, and
it's cheaper.
I remember at one time because I actually used to live in Austin for a little bit, and I love Austin, but it's not the same as what it used to.
No,
be.
I used to love Austin,
but even I remember walking around downtown Austin, and I actually felt safe.
Right.
Like in the middle of the night.
You used to be able to do that.
And,
down 6th Street.
And even if, because there was a time where the homeless population were like artsy people. Mm-hmm. And on top of that.
They really were.
They, that's where the whole, because it was a homeless person who created the Keep Austin Weird slogan. And I remember there was a time where, if a homeless person came up to you and be like, "Hey, do you have $1 or whatever?" And I'm like, "Hey, no, I don't have any cash." They were always friendly, like, "Hey, it's all right, peace," it was
right.
very,
it's true.
But now, you go to Austin, this is
get shot.
I had someone in Austin come up to me and was like, "Are you Jesus?" And I was like, "No." He's like, "Well, you look like him in my Bible." I was like, "Okay, whatever." I don't know. In Austin, have the problem with the tents, but even here in Lubbock, I'm starting to see way more homelessness.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you if elected? Is there anything in your control to help them, or to redirect them, or to?
There is a lot.
What are options? Because that's such a weird thing to just.
It really is.
You can't end it.
And you can't. But there is a lot of possibilities to redirect it. One, you find out.
Is that a priority?
It has to be. I think in every city it should be, and it's not right now. But you start looking at, okay, first of all, if we were to, one of the things that we're not able to do is if there's people from other countries and people think, "Oh, it's just people from Mexico, you're against Mexicans and you're Mexican." No, that's crazy. Over 180 countries are there's caravans coming through here. So, and a lot of these people have committed crimes. So the first people that you go after is you look for the ones that are there, you find out where they're from, and if they've committed crimes. If they've committed crimes in our country, then why are they here? You're not here to contribute to our country. You're here to make it worse. Let's do that. This open border thing, I mean, it used to be where people would come across, and if there's true asylum seekers, and it's usually with your neighboring country. And it's not even usually, it is. That's what asylum is. You're seeking asylum because you're being oppressed in your country, and you can come to the neighboring country. So if that were the case, there would be in several other countries, but they're getting shipped over here. We're getting them from China. And that's not good either. So, and it's not like they're bringing families. It's like these are military-age men coming into our country, unvetted, and dropped off in neighborhoods. And, they're homeless. And a lot of times, they're being, redirected in different places. And this is absolutely one of them that they're being redirected to because the cost of living is cheaper. But as mayor, you start really having to look at that, and those are tough decisions, and some people don't think that we should make those decisions. I think we should. I think if you're not from this country, and you're not contributing to the betterment of Lubbock, and you're being a drag on the taxpayer who's already having a struggle just to feed their own families, why are they having to feed all of these others and doing this stuff and having to suffer through the crime that you're bringing into the city? Then those are the ones you ship out first. And then after that, you start finding now if there's families with homelessness, let's start looking at ways to amend that and really help them get placed, give them skill sets. If you give people life skills and they can work for themselves, you'd be surprised how many of them really want to do that.
Is this like
would you possibly do the same for those inmates that are getting dropped off?
If as long as they're being good citizens, absolutely. Mm-hmm. I'm not against people that went to jail. You know what? They've served their time. Go ahead. But if they're coming out here and there's no rhyme or reason, and they're not trying to be that's what I'm saying. If you're not trying to improve the society, I think you should.
Yeah, that's also one of those things that is a touchy subject because
sure.
I mean I have uncles in the pen.
So have I.
I'm not saying that as like I'm just saying I just know, but I know these men, grown ass men that make grown ass decisions. Yes,
right.
Bad decisions, consciously.
Sure.
They are put in these prison systems to be held, not necessarily rehabilitated.
And that's a mistake in a prison system, by the way.
It is. Oh, it completely is. I'm not saying that's you.
Yeah.
But once they are out, there has to be something in place to truly rehabilitate these people because these people that have been called damaged goods,
right,
throwaways, and it's even like he's like, I don't want them in here. You know what I mean? They are going to revert to what they know if they are not shown something or not. Okay, you're here. We're going to rehabilitate you through here. You're going to have a job here. These are your expectations, X, Y, steps or whatever. Like it's give and take in that situation. Sure. And I know it is instilled in a person to just want to be innately better, but eventually that person will break because they do have addiction problems or whatever. You know what I mean?
But if we're helping them get the help that they need.
And some of these men go into the pen right at 17, 18, and they're released at 36, 40, 44, What do they know? They only know one world.
That's and here's the thing. When I said that they're not being rehabilitated, that is horrible about our system because they should be. And it's a shame that this is happening in America where we are not doing that, because that should be the number one thing we try to do when you incarcerate somebody. How do you rehabilitate them? Because at some point they're going to be, they're going to be reintroduced back into society. Give them some skill sets, some life skills or whatever. One of my, and it's interesting you say it, one of my best friends, and he works my campaign, and he has all these tats from head to toe because he was in the biker gangs, and he was a bad dude at one point, but now he's a completely different man. He's amazing. And, when he was working my campaign, he's like, I don't want to have to do this because I don't want people to see my tats. I'm like, why not? He goes, well, I don't want to hurt your campaign. I was like, no, do an ad for me, because these are people that we're living with today. The fact that he came out of that situation, because these are like prison type tats. And if you have come full circle where you were doing bad things, but now you're doing good things, I think that should be celebrated. I don't think we should point fingers at them because they look different or they came from a different world, because this guy is raising a family. He's doing an amazing job. I love his child. She's being raised wonderfully and so respectful and stuff. And so if you didn't know he was in prison, you wouldn't know he was ever in prison because of the man he's become. There's a lot of people that went into prison. I have family members that did that. And I'm so grateful for the life that they have turned the way that they've turned their life around, that I'll do anything to help them. And I think we should. And I think as a city, when you have people that want to help themselves and want to better themselves, let's find the tools that we can to help them achieve that. I think it's something that we as humans owe to one another. And again, that goes back to my spiritual being and how I believe. I think our actions should serve as to who we are. And how that is the way you treat people that the rest of society maybe doesn't understand. And you know what? Anymore, that's most of us. That's most of us.
So talking about that, we all, make mistakes,
Sure.
and everything. Your running mate has started the Freedom Act thing where they got the signatures for Lubbock to be, because Lubbock has a chance now. It didn't pass through the city council. So now it's going to be able to have a chance for Lubbock citizens to vote on it. So other cities such as, Austin, Denton, Elgin, Killeen, they've already passed that.
And they're being sued by the Attorney General.
Yeah, I saw that too. But so if there's a chance that Lubbock, if it does get voted on it and it passes, what are some challenges you see with that? And then, are the cities right now that have passed it, what problems are they having right now?
I will tell you this, Colorado, and I've been in California and stuff, places that have passed it. I know people are saying, well, it's only 4 ounces. That's a lot of weed. The problem I have with it, and again, people can disagree with me. I know Adam does, and that's fine. He's got his point of view. I have mine. It has really turned a lot of it's unloaded a lot of crime. It's unloaded a lot of deaths. People that are driving under influence, and especially younger kids. It's become more and more accessible to children, all the way down to 12, where you're seeing use at an unprecedented rate. I'm completely against it, because right now we already have enough violent crime out there. In fact, the sheriff was sharing with me the other day that there was 6 drive-by shootings in 6 days that week, and all of them were marijuana related.
Hi, I'm sorry. This is important, and I really want to be involved in this. With this damn dog.
Please do. Yeah, go ahead. So, but that's my concern is there's a lot of statistics. In fact,
So there were 6 drive-bys in Lubbock about weed?
They were all related to weed and weed trafficking. Like they were drive-by shootings.
Them?
Yeah, they were trying to get it. They were attacking people that were there, and there's obviously more, but just in the past 6 days leading up to that one day when we were talking about it. And again, everybody's going to have their opinion about this, and they're welcome to it. And I know this is an unpopular decision. I'm going to tell you about it anyway. But to me, I think the care of the city and the well-being of the citizens, and especially, again, not giving children access to something they wouldn't otherwise have access to. Because if you're saying 4 ounces is enough, 4 ounces is a big old bag.
Would you say it was 250 joints?
Yes, 250 joints, and so that's a lot of weed. That's not personal use.
I don't think
right.
it's, and I don't think it's, no, what is the word I'm looking for? The weed is strong, and a 12-year-old mind should not be smoking.
They should not, and
they shouldn't be drinking.
And it should be regulated.
It should be, and here's another thing too. A lot of fentanyl that's been, and a lot of fentanyl deaths were from that were weed. It was weed laced.
Can't overlook this either.
Yeah.
And it's a real deal. And so I'm never going to want to endorse the use of an illicit drug. And somebody posted on my deal one time, not too long ago, well, what do you want to make alcohol illegal again? Okay, one, it's, we saw it, and they're trying to act like, well, it's all this is happening because weed isn't illegal. But you're seeing what's happening when weed is illegal, when they're legalizing weed, and the crime has gone up, not down. So, do I have issues when somebody's like they're smoking weed or something? That's them. If they're an adult, do it. I don't care. I'm not going to come up to you now. I'm not going to try to legalize it for you. That's your choice, and you take that risk. But I'm not going to make it legal so the police officers have a hard time arresting you with it when you've got it around your children or around potentially where it can be distributed to children by nefarious characters.
Those type of people should be arrested. You're right. But
I do understand that, but I also think about like. Again, we're a university town, so I'm thinking about a 19-year-old, a 20-year-old that, yes, is going to get high and whatever. Mm-hmm. They get caught with a joint. Should they be charged to the highest, you know what I mean?
Well, and here's the thing, if they're charged with the joint.
Because to my understanding, that's kind of what the Freedom Act is. It's the decriminalize,
Well, the Freedom Act is allowing 4 ounces to be legal, where they cannot, like a police officer, if you see somebody with what looks like 4 ounces, could be 5. How are they supposed to measure it? They can't.
Are we sure it's 4? I thought it was 2.
It's 4 ounces, I believe.
Will you look it up, please?
It's 4 ounces.
I want to be fair here.
Yeah, and let's say that you get pulled over and he sees it right on you.
No, just look up the Freedom Act.
Oh, Freedom.
That's what you need to
Now, why are we allowing them where they can't do anything about that? They're not, and so let's say there's kids in the car. They still can't do anything about that. And that police officer can be, there's all these penalties that they have to go through for doing something about that. You know what happens when you allow that much weed there, all of a sudden kids have access to it. And there's already kids that have access in schools as it is. And drugs are being passed out left and right, and you can go to any school and they'll tell you it's happening. Now imagine if 4 ounces is legal, and let's say they have it in their car, they can say, well, that's my dad's. But they're distributing in schools. You all of a sudden now you have made turn children into bigger drug dealers. And now let's say some of that's laced with fentanyl. They can't even look to see if it is. And somebody dies.
I'm sure these cases exist.
And I will tell you this, it is way, way, way harder to go back on something like this and say we made a mistake, which is what Colorado wishes they could do right now.
I respect you for standing up against it, because this is like...
and I'm talking to... You know what? I'm going to lose a 1,000 votes here, and I'm okay with that.
It's a big issue.
I want people to know how I feel about this.
A lot of people that recommended to talk about things.
And I know, and that's one reason. And again, I'm being real. I'm going to be honest with everybody.
If it's, like Bradley said, we vote in May when we can vote for the mayor, it's decriminalized.
Right.
If you're elected mayor, what are you going to do about that?
What can I do? If you're the mayor, what can I do?
Okay.
It's there, and here's the thing.
Isn't that like a we the people issue?
Yeah, it is. It's not even just a we the people issue. What can I do? The people voted on it. Mm-hmm. I'm going to have to defend lawsuits. That's the situation a lot of these other cities have gone in there. I don't want it here.
Because they're going to get sued probably.
We're going to get sued, and we're going to get sued bad. And I can tell you right now, the Attorney General, and I know him, he's a friend of mine, Ken Paxton. Yeah. Oh, is it 2 ounces?
Yeah.
That's way better than 4.
Because in Colorado,
but still, it's not good. Yeah, it's not. It's still not good. But here's the thing: this Attorney General we have, and I know Ken Paxton. He is a friend of mine, and
I'd like to have him on the podcast.
And he is not going to relent from this because there's a lot of. And again, I'm looking. I may disagree with you, but it's because I'm looking out for the safety.
It's going to cost a lot of money
of the city, of the people of the city, and the damage that the places that have legalized it that you see.
Tony, so can I be honest with you? Mm-hmm. I don't smoke it, but if a grown adult wants to, they should. I'll just be real. I don't think it's going to pass. I don't think it's going to pass.
I don't think it will here either, but I think it's going to get real close. Now here's the problem with that again is when it does. Now we're stuck with it. Mm-hmm. Okay. And these kids, when you start seeing stuff happening at the school level and stuff, how do we unpass it? How do we go back and retract
Wouldn't you just regulate it more?
Well, can you though? Because it's an ordinance passed by the city, and that's one thing that you have to go back through.
But steps of taking what the Going back to how the Freedom Act was even created is going back, and
you have to go back through in the same way. Proposing things. Yeah. I will tell you this: the one thing that I will do.
Impossible. It's right. It's a journey.
It's a journey, and it's going to be a journey that's going to be worth taking, because I promise you, the second that this thing goes through, if it does, everybody's going to wish it didn't.
So you see marijuana as a drug?
And here's the thing. Right now it's a drug, and I see it as a drug because I'm going with the legal definition that's out there. And I do know, based on what we're seeing from other cities and other states, the damage it's causing. And, people are going to say, well, when you smoke weed, you get a little buzz, whatever, and nobody wants to do any damage. You just want to eat. And that's what I'm hearing from my friends. Okay, fine. That's their opinion. That's one thing. But the marijuana of today isn't like the marijuana of back in the day.
I guarantee you, and people's minds are destroyed from this weed.
Right. So I don't know. And again, if you're looking for somebody to say, I think it's a great idea, we should do it, I'm not your guy. I don't want it here. Fair. I don't. And I'm just being very honest. And like I said, I know all of these people listening probably say, well, I'm not going to vote for him. I'm sorry you feel that way. But at least, it's like I told you, I'm not going to back down from a situation. Mm-hmm. I don't want it here. And not because I'm against people that smoke marijuana or something, but I just don't want it to be so accessible that these children are going to have greater access to it, because that's what's going to happen. And they're innocent.
Do you think that they would have more access to it? Or
absolutely.
Or is it just kind of like the weight of that penalty? Because I guess that's what I was trying to say earlier.
And that also,
like a college student being charged to the highest degree. Yeah. Say they do have the full 2 ounces, right? And whoever cop stops them, they have to do their job. They're going to have to charge them, whatever. And they go to jail or prison, whatever. Mm-hmm. That is going to insanely affect somebody's, complete future career path and everything.
Now this is what I'm talking about. That is from a decision that they chose to make.
Oh, it is. No, it completely
and
is.
Now what I'm talking about
just
are
like
kids who are
drinking a beer, hitting a stop sign.
Right now, well, there you go. Right,
you know what I mean?
Absolutely. But what I'm talking about is, that you've got, like, where maybe a kid goes into somebody's car and sees it and pulls some of it out and sticks it in there and rolls up a joint and starts smoking it, and then something happens. And that's happening a lot in Colorado. Like I said, because now what you're starting to see more and more and more of is hospitalizations and more death and stuff for kids all the way down to 12 years old on average. But there's even lower, but the ones that are really prevalent are at 12. So at 12, and as you said it yourself, these kids are curious, and I said it myself. Now they have access, more unfettered access. And now, let's say that they have it they have it in their backpack. Oh, that's my dad's. But now they're dealing it in schools and stuff, and some other kids that wouldn't have normally had it say, oh, this looks cool, let me smoke it.
I think that's fair.
There's more and more that's available than there is now. So it's happening now. But imagine it multiplied times however many that you think.
It was happening when I was in high school.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
I think we can all agree kids shouldn't have it. But
right.
No, they shouldn't. But
you think legalizing it,
it's going to make it way more, way easier. And that's what I'm afraid of. And so I'm just being real here.
Oh, yeah. No. And you are making that point, because it would just be more accessible. You know what I mean? Like the impact of those decisions wouldn't be so heavy, so they will be less influent. I don't know.
Anyways, I got it.
Anyways, so if it's going to be like, the kids are going to get their hands on what they're going to get their hands on regardless, right?
Sure.
Just some of these kids are just, if it's just going to be around and it's getting worse and worse, whether it's weed, pills, anything, coke, because the younger these kids get, the more experimental they're getting as the years are going.
Well, you ain't kidding. It is. You're right. It's happening a lot.
This is just truth. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But if it's going to keep happening, wouldn't harm reduction be something that is important to teach these children? Not excusing it, not telling them it is okay to do these drugs, but test your drugs. But it's like I said, these kids are going to do what they're going to do, so they harmlessly smoke this joint because that's what kids are doing. It's laced with fentanyl, they get a vape, they buy it off a dealer. They don't know that vape is coming straight from New Mexico or Colorado, whatever. It could be mixed with whatever. It could have fentanyl. So would teaching children harm reduction help them? And it goes into the same conversation that we were talking about earlier, is in teaching the kids the harms of the world, the dangers of the world, the dangers that people are trying to inflict on them, letting them know the decisions you make are your decisions, but there are these options. This is how you could test your drugs. This is just something accessible where you could save your own life or your friend's life.
Right. I will tell you this, and you hit the nail on the head. But you don't need the legalization of drugs to teach them that. That's what we were discussing earlier when I was saying let's start teaching that. Let's talk about drug awareness. Let's talk about child trafficking and the dangers and what to look for. Let's talk about all these issues. But taking it back to the drug stuff, yes, absolutely.
Because it's just like you can only fearmonger a kid so much.
Yeah. I mean, but if you show it to them in a way
that... I'll tell you what, I was raised Marilyn Manson's bad drugs.
Oh, my gosh.
And I was just like, where is it? Google. You know what I mean?
So,
you can only fearmonger somebody so much before you're just like, you know what? Hey, it is what it is.
You need examples on why drugs are bad? I got a few friends.
Well, there you go. And that's kind of what I'm talking about is people that have been there, done that. Let's let them lead that path.
No, truly. And I'm also saying
that can say it.
I remember reading Crank and Glass and all these heavy books, but being able to know that's drug addiction, that is how a spiral happens.
Right.
That is how these habits start. And so as I started identifying them with friends and everything, exposing myself to literature like that was harsh. Exposing myself to these things guided me to literally just completely steer past it.
And that's what we need to do. You have to be real with them.
Being a teenager in the era of 16 and pregnant did not encourage me and make me think pregnancy's sick.
No.
It encouraged me, that looks fucking miserable.
And you know what? But here's the thing.
Steered me.
And I think we should start addressing some of these problems at the age that it's starting to proliferate, right?
Yeah.
But we need to introduce it to them in a way that allows them to understand it without wanting to do it.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what I'm talking about.
Yes. Just transparently.
But you have to be real.
Yeah.
Because right now, what we're doing isn't working. It's not. Because look at what's happening all across the country. Look at what's happening. So these kids aren't getting the message in the way that it should be delivered to them. And that's one of the things that I really think we should work on. That's why I was telling you that with Luca and some of these others, we're teaming together to do that.
And I completely agree, because these things do need to be regulated and talked about, but I also don't think they need to be snuffed out. I feel like there has to be
I'm with
something.
You. 1,000%.
It's like I told you, you're not going to get rid of what's going on. It's going to increase.
But you have to increase awareness of it.
You have to increase
in
awareness,
a way that
they
don't.
2024, it's only going...
It's going to keep going.
It's impossible to go back to those core values. Sometimes you can hold them, but it's impossible to just make everybody aligned.
But if we can also create awareness without having to have them go out and experiment with all this stuff. But we have to agree that it's there, right? I mean, it's there. These issues they exist. We can't just wish them out of existence. They do exist. That's why I'm telling you, with having you here, I love that you're here because you're challenging me, and I dig that. I really do. It's cool.
Nice. I'm sorry if I'm being
no, not at all. I want you to keep doing that, because that's what we need to hear. If we're going to be involved in city government, we need people like you coming down and telling me exactly how it is, so we can appreciate. Because I promise you, for everyone like you that's talking about this, there's a million others that maybe even have deeper issues that they're trying to address, right? And people are afraid to do that. You know, when I grew up as a up until I was 4.5 years old, I was severely abused. I mean, horribly, to where my uncle had to save my life and brought me back. And I've had to live with that the rest of my life. Back then it was like nobody talked about that stuff, right? There was no CPS, there was no any of this stuff. And things got worse and worse and worse because there wasn't. And luckily, my mom was brave enough to call my uncle and have him come and get me and bring me back to Lubbock. And that's how I ended up here. And that's why I'm still alive. I was horribly malnourished and everything else. But one of the things I will tell you, and I think it's pretty interesting, a little story I'll tell you. When I was in school, because I was so malnourished, I was literally thin. The teachers would have to give me, in the morning they would bring cookies and his big old peanut butter cookies are delicious, and juices and milks. Well, they would give me 2, and then they would give me double lunches because they needed me to start, gaining weight, And I remember some of the classmates were getting upset because I was always getting them. They're like, well, he's the student of the month. It was like, oh, okay, well, how do we get student of the month? Well, you just have to do better than him. And every month, they were saying the same thing. So you know what that made me do? I was like, I want to be student of the month again. So I'm studying harder, I'm working harder, I'm believing this, right? So you start believing in yourself, and that's the encouragement that these teachers gave me. And at the same time, they're watching my nutritional value and stuff, because again, that wasn't monitored up until that point. So I'm starting from scratch there. I didn't get over 100 pounds till my senior year. I mean, that's how long it took me to finally get to normal state. Now look at me. I found it all. But, honestly, I look at that, and I look at the teaching and coaching, what the right influence can do. Now, not everything's going to be like that, right? It's not. But we have to find a way to reach these kids at that level as they start thinking about experimenting with stuff, or kids that are caught up in that world, and how do we pull them out of it? And that's why this kind of stuff's so important to me, because I know what it's like. I know what it's like to have the proper direction, the proper mentorship from people that truly, truly, genuinely care about you, that shouldn't have to otherwise. I mean, there were a lot of people in my life that have stepped up for me. And so all I'm doing is paying it forward. And so that's why I say, if I lose votes for trying to protect these kids, I remember what that was like. And I don't want to have to hand this world over to people that mean harm to children when I know what that feels like. I won't do it. And so I will fight that fight. And I'll fight on that hill, I'll die on that hill, because I'm trying to do the right thing. And if it means I'm not the mayor because, I'm upsetting people that I don't agree with the marijuana, I'm sorry. But just know I'm doing this out of a place of love that I have for the community out here that I live in. And the way that I want to give back to this community is to try to make it a little bit better place for everybody to live in. And especially these college students. I mean, I look at them, and I agree with you. I don't like that if they have a roll joint or whatever, that they can really pay a penalty that they'll never be able to overcome in their life. I get that. But the answer isn't in is in 2 ounces. I wish that there was another way we could address that, where they could work that off and get it off the record or something, instead of trying to legalize it. There's got to be another option, and maybe once this doesn't pass, we better start finding that option, and that's something that we need to seek. But what I do want to do is I do want to make sure that whatever we do at the city level, that it's the right thing for everybody in the community, not just a select few. Okay, whether it's somebody that agrees with me or not, I want to make this place where they can do the best work that they can possibly do without the interference from the city, without city government interfering. I want us to be able to afford to go to the grocery store. I want our families to know that when they go to the store with $100, they come back and they have enough food to feed the family for as long as they need that $100 to stretch. Right now, that's not happening. So what can we do at the city level to improve that? And how can we help these families that are struggling with these things? Well, one of them isn't to make the alleyway their issue. No, I mean, we have to really look at what we're doing as a government and what we're spending money on, and do it right. So we can legitimately lower taxes, instead of saying we're lowering taxes by raising the value of your house by $50,000. So they can sneak those taxes in, some other way. I just want to make Lubbock a better place for everybody, and I do not discriminate. And that's why you say, well, if they come out of prison, well, are they trying to be a productive member of this community, and do they want to be? And maybe they're not, but they want to be. How do we facilitate that? Okay. And how do we take care of them up until that point? Well, fortunately, we have a lot of churches and a lot of other, organizations that come in and they help them, and it gives them an opportunity to at least try. But if there's something we can do at the government level to accommodate that, because you know what happens when they start a life? They start contributing taxes. So now we're spreading that, that burden over more and more people. One of the things I didn't agree with, and I don't like that they did it, was, there was a student housing project that was going to go up that would have created a lot of jobs, and it would have generated a lot of revenue for the city, and it would have housed 10,000 more tech students. Okay, and it was going right across campus. It would not have changed any of the traffic going there, because if you're a student, Do you want to drive your car to and from school and pay for parking, or are you just going to walk across the street? And so we had an opportunity to build one of those. In fact, we had 4 different infrastructure opportunities that would have generated a lot of revenue for the city, a lot of tax burden that would have been shifted. It would have helped us to pay for additional firefighters and additional police officers and keep them here longer, right? But instead, they were shot down, all shot down. Why is that? I mean, we're sitting here saying we don't know where we can find the money. They say, here's where you can find the money. And the city councilman says, well, I don't want to look at this ugly wall in my backyard, when I want to look at the university. Okay. So you're going to shut down the opportunity to get 10,000 more students here, which would have generated more revenue for the university, more revenue for the city, and spread out all of these expenses more evenly. So it would have made it a little easier on the rest of us, right? But you said no because you didn't want to look at a wall. It was ugly. Paint the wall.
That was like for real. Like somebody said that.
Yeah, that was.
Who said it?
That was McBrayer. That Mark McBrayer.
He's running.
He shut it down. Yeah, he's one of the ones running. Okay. So we have, and that's what I'm talking about right now, is that we have opportunities to make this city better, and we're passing them by. And so, like with me, if you like the way things are, I'm not your guy. If you want them to keep doing this and let the bureaucracy reign, I'm not that guy. I'm going to go in there and I'm the guy that brings change, and a lot of it. But it's not going to be just crazy change for the sake of change. I'm going to start looking where we can cut back, and I'm going to make this government behave itself. That's part of conservatism too. Is if you have $100 and you have to figure out how to spend that $100 at home. Are you going to go waste it on something that you don't need, or are you going to start providing the things you do? That's being conservative. You're like, I have to use this money for this and this and this because I don't have any more till next week. Well, the city doesn't spend that way right now, and we're going to make it. That's what I bring to the table.
Makes sense.
Well, I'm excited to watch whoever wins. I hope it is. I was talking to my stepdad before this. I didn't know who you were, but I honestly hope somebody like you or Adam wins because I want to see how the bureaucracy works. I want to see how it works.
They're not going to like me. They're not going to like me, I promise you.
Because we're going to get to watch it.
Yeah.
And I'm going to see if they...
And here's one thing I tell everybody, and Tim will tell you this. I'm ridiculously approachable. I love people, and I just want to help. I really do. And I will do anything I can to give people answers or whatever it is that they need. And so hold me accountable. When if I win mayor, call me back on this podcast. Say, remember you said this, this, and this, and I'll come back on your podcast. I promise you that. And I don't make empty promises. I do what I say I'm going to do.
So how much? You got a little bit more time?
Sure. Yeah, I've got all the time you need.
Do you guys want to ask him questions that you have?
Because
I have to use the restroom, and when we do, we'll get back.
You answered every.
I thought it was just my mom until now. I know it's all of them.
Yeah, same brother, same.
You're working with Destiny.
Oh yeah, Destiny is amazing. I love her. By the way, her and Gino are great. They're just
awesome.
Great. They're incredible people.
Honestly, a lot of them were legalized marijuana. Let's see.
Hey, you know what? I get it. That's who they are, and I don't fault them that. It's
a big issue.
It's just not your. It's not your.
It's not my
priority.
thing.
Yeah.
It's not my thing. I mean, my thing is, there's a lot I know because of the skill sets that I have and what I do for a living, which is basically turn companies around and I find out where the holes are in the budget and I fix it. Mm-hmm. And I want to be able to do that at the level, at the municipal level and maybe create a better way for us to do things so we can get the protection from the police officers and from the first responders and again to lower the taxes and give some people a break because if you think about all of these expensive, even people that are renting houses, even though it's affecting property taxes, they have to raise their rates to accommodate that, and a lot of people can't afford it, I'm trying to help families like mine, man. That's all I care about is make Lubbock more affordable. I should be able to make that as much.
We're going to clip that.
Affordable.
We're going to clip that part.
Oh, there you go. Hey, we need to, right?
What are your questions? I think you pretty much already answered them.
Yeah, you really did. Because somebody had asked, a lot of small businesses were affected by the alley sewage line policy. Will he reverse that? You addressed that earlier.
Oh, absolutely.
That was a minute ago.
Yeah, that was a minute ago. Yeah, but no, I will tell you this, and just to readdress it, I think it's absolutely ridiculous that even came up. It should not have. Mm-hmm. And the two council members that are running for mayor both voted for it to charge the citizens. And I think it's shameful that they did that. They did that without thinking about the repercussions to the citizens. They just said, well, it'll make government better. But the people are the government.
It was a low blow to cut a corner.
It really was a very low blow. And the only reason they are working to undo it, and they may not. They may just. It may all be. And to be honest with you, I hope that we make them do it before the election. But if they don't, and I win, I will do it after. But what for the councilman that says, well, I don't care, and I'll do it again. For him later to say, oh, I talked to another councilwoman and we're going to do this. It's because the polling numbers showed that he made a huge mistake. So I don't think that he should be patting himself on the back for fixing a mistake, a mess up that he created. I mean,
is that what you were referencing earlier?
Yes,
then?
that was what I was referencing.
Okay.
And so
I remember you referencing that situation. I just didn't know it was referencing to this.
Yes, and it absolutely was. So here's the thing: if I mess up, and let's say I come up here and I hit your car, and I back up and I leave, and I come back and I say, man, I feel bad about that. Look what happened to your car. You should call your insurance and fix it. And then later you find out I did it, and I was like, oh, I didn't realize you had a camera, but let me go ahead and fix that. And yeah, I'm going to fix that for you. Does that make me the hero of your story, or somebody that tried to get away with something?
Yeah, the latter.
Yeah. And that's, what? Own it. If you do something stupid, own it. I do stupid stuff all the time. And you're going to hear me say, that was stupid. I did it. I'm sorry. Y'all were right. I was wrong. And own it and fix it. But don't expect a pat on the back.
For being honest.
Yes. That's, for fixing something that you know what? If the people hadn't have started getting into an outrage about it, he wouldn't have fixed it.
Yeah.
And that's the difference. I wouldn't have done it in the first place.
Yeah. So that was one that you did address. One thing that somebody asked was, how does he plan to course correct the overpopulation of Lubbock Animal Shelter and his solution to strays?
Oh, one, we definitely need to spay and neuter. Let's just make no mistake about that.
Would you do like a catch and release program?
Yeah, absolutely. And here's the thing too. There's a lot of and we need to crack down really and start finding these people that have these puppy mills, because that's where a lot of it's coming from. And it's cruel to those. It's very, very cruel to those animals that they're doing it with. And then what happens is, you have people that are taking dogs in, and next thing you know, they can't handle them anymore. But these puppy mills are still producing them, popping them out. And we should really regulate how dogs are sold and stuff in this, and there should be a stiff penalty for people that are creating these puppy mills. That again, this population is really, really out of control right now, and we're going to have to address it. And spaying and neutering is going to be a huge part of it, but there needs to be something on the books where these people that are creating that problem pay a larger sum of money than it's worth for them to run these mills. And
so besides, that's true, because the luxury dog thing is a trend. Whatever, it's always been a trend. It's just whatever breed is popular. And dogs are damn expensive now.
They are.
Why the hell are they $2,000?
Oh my gosh, it's insane.
$2,000 to ruin my deposit. Anyways, but
no doubt.
Besides that, I remember a point that Adam made, because I want to say he addressed it whenever we went. He invited us to his announcement. But anyways, somebody asked this question, something along the same lines, and so your solution was of cracking down puppy mills, making it, whatever. But one of his proposed solutions was holding the people of Lubbock accountable. That, like, essentially, you get a dog, they have to have a tracker on them, they have to whatever, so that way when they find the dog, they fine you for your dog is getting out constantly. You know what?
And I don't disagree with that at all. In fact, I think that's a great idea. I wish I'd have come up with it.
Because
I love that idea.
Your solution is addressing one big part of a problem, and his solution is holding another group of people accountable for
I honestly think we should instigate both of them.
Because we're not seeing Frenchies out on the loose.
Oh, no, we're not. No, we're not.
We're seeing pits and mutts and all that kind of stuff.
No, but I totally agree with his plan. I think we should implement both. I think we should really start doing everything we can to curb that population, because it is getting way out of control. And so I like that idea too. I'm not against that at all. In fact, I'm going to probably steal that idea if I'm elected. I'm just so Adam. You can tell Adam. Sorry about that, buddy. I'm going to steal that idea. It's a good idea.
Yeah.
And you know what? I'm going to give again. I'm not going to lie to anybody. I'm not here to do that. If you have a great idea, I don't care where it originated from. If it's something that I think would work, I will implement that. I think that's a fantastic idea.
Go,
I wish I had come up with it, but now I'm going to use it. Thank you, Adam.
Bradley, got any?
It now belongs to me too.
Whenever you're done, I have one more
right,
that
go
somebody
ahead.
wanted to.
You do?
Okay.
And I don't mean to turn this into a touchy
Sure.
subject, because this is just universally very touchy, but somebody did ask this. They said the Heartbeat Act that the city and county voted into place. And so to that I said, is there anything you specifically want me to inquire on that? Because it's such a broad spectrum.
Yeah.
To which they said, his views in it, I would like to hear his unbiased, unreligious point of view. Why he thinks it needs to stay in place. But if he is pro-life, why should he or anybody have a say in what someone else does to their body? Because what they are really doing to keep people from having babies if they're against Planned Parenthood. Oh, okay. Because what are they really doing to keep people from having babies if they are against Planned Parenthood organizations? He isn't a woman, and he does not have a uterus.
Okay, and it's interesting.
And this is one of the reasons I voted in the last election, which was why I was very much like, shame on y'all for sharing infographics and all this whatever and not doing your part to vote here in Lubbock.
Right.
That's what I saw a lot of when this thing passed.
And again, that's another philosophical difference, and and I'm not going to stray from that. God created us, and we're babies in the womb. We're not a clump of cells or anything. Because if that's the case, then every animal is a clump of cells when they have a clump of cells in their bodies when they're pregnant. I am always going to be 100% pro-life because I believe in the life that is in that womb. And I have literally gone and watched a long time ago. I was invited by a friend of mine out of Austin who literally did a movie about it. And they had me try to watch an abortion. And it was the most barbaric thing I've ever seen in my life. And I don't think any baby should ever deal with that. There are 4 million people in this country trying to adopt, and there are over 2 million abortions a year.
So how do we? Okay, so
the thing is, and a lot of people disagree with me on this, and a lot of conservatives say, well, I think practice birth control. I think we need to teach more about that. If they're not going to try to carry a child to term, then practice birth control. I mean,
and I completely agree with that, and I completely agree with education. It's just one of those things because I know for the longest time it was teaching abstinence,
abstinence,
which. Yes, that is also something to consider. You know what I mean? On like maybe a moral level, a spiritual level, or even just in a self-respect level. Right. Just basic. You know what I mean? But then there's also goes back to just education and transparency.
Right, there
and
is.
If you're going to do what you're going to do, these are the ways that you can prevent your life going in a specific direction. Absolutely. There's birth control, but then we deal with rape and incest and abuse in the home and...
those are less than 0.2% of all abortions, and they do now on stuff like that. And I'll tell you, I believe that and again they say don't go into the religious stuff. I'm sorry, but I'm a faith guy.
But if you could try,
you know
what I mean. I know. It's
I'll tell you this, and again, this is my personal belief on it. Is I will never do that. Now, if let's say. Like Tim had a sister or somebody, or you told me that you had done that. Am I going to look at you and judge you? I'm not.
Oh no, I'm not talking about judging.
But what I would say is this: there are states that they could it's a drive up to Albuquerque, or to a place like that where it is allowed, because there are still philosophical differences, and the voters, again, just like you talk about the marijuana and all that, what are you going to do? The voters have spoken here.
Yeah.
So. But the voters in Albuquerque, because remember that Roe v. Wade overturning didn't make it illegal. It just said the states get to choose their path, but they can, that person that had to experience that, if they want to do that, they can go to a state that's allowed it.
But wouldn't they get in trouble, or isn't there a chance that they could get in trouble?
No, you can go wherever it's legal.
You sue the place that's doing it.
Right.
That's what the law is.
Yeah, the law is if it doesn't have to be in Texas, but that person can go across. That's why this other one with the loophole on the transitioning is such a big deal. It's like they're circumventing the law on a transition, which I will never agree with. But if you're saying that there's a rape or there's incest or there's life of the mother's at risk and they want to go have an abortion, they can drive over to Albuquerque and do it, and it doesn't affect the taxpayers and tax dollars. Now, me personally, I'm against that. And again, but I don't have a uterus, just like you said. Well, I hope I don't.
And I mean, hey man, women are.
But I don't. But again, I'm not going to judge you for doing that. And here's the beauty of that is I'm not. You know what? If you're going to do that, that's a choice between you. That's a decision that you made between you and God. But I have to honor what again, one, I voted on it. But let's say that it was legal here. Then do it. I can't say anything about it. But since it's not, and since if I'm in that position, and especially because that's the way I believe that God gave us all life and there's a value in that life no matter what. But let's say that it would be too traumatic for them. Who am I to judge that person?
Yeah.
I'm not God. And whether it's a religious reason or whatever, and I say religious, but it's a faith reason or not, for me, I have to honor what the laws are in that city, whether I agree with it or not.
So
at the end of the day, you have to abide by it.
Is it illegal because we voted on it?
It's illegal. Yeah, it's that we made this a sanctuary city for the unborn, so that's why they're running all of that, and also because in the state and
the people voted.
Yeah, the people voted for it, and also at the state level, and also in our city. So it's that's why I'm saying what if you want to play by those rules with marijuana, you got to play by those rules
but
with
it's
babies.
also who voted.
It's fair.
Now I will say this, and this is one of the.
That was something that I was so like. Ugh.
One of the biggest things.
I talked to the guys, and they're like, oh.
Yeah, no. One of the things that crushes me, and
but it's not.
It's democracy.
And I will tell you this: it is very, very sad that you see that, and you're right. In most places, wherever you go, there's 10, and on big elections, if you're lucky, you get 15, maybe 20% of the people to vote. But in most instances, especially in city elections, you're lucky to get 10%. It's usually going to be less. And people need to vote.
I think it'll be 10% again.
And I know, and it's a shame, but I wish they would. And especially when, if you're sitting there and you're upset with the government, what they're doing, don't be discouraged from voting. Be encouraged to vote. No, change it. It is we the people.
And that is completely why I voted. And it was... That was such a jarring change, and I work in a hair salon, full of women, and I remember when that
I love
passed,
that.
I remember when that passed, everybody was just kind of like...
I know.
Because it was just so like, we just got that stripped away from us. You know what I mean? But also it's like, besides abortion being a choice, there are these instances of like you said, like if it's going to be harm to the woman or whatever, if she suffers a miscarriage, sometimes time is imminent in these situations. Yeah. And because of these like legal whatever, it's really hard for these doctors to say, this is an emergency, I have to do it, or these hospitals just do not want to risk liability of getting sued.
Right.
So these women could die. They're going septic.
And here's the thing about that.
Even
again,
if it is a small percentage,
right?
It's a percentage of women that are dying.
Just in much the same way with marijuana.
Yeah.
Okay, and the drug deaths and stuff, because it's a small percentage, and I get that. And no law is perfect. That is what's
terrifying, because that's God's plan, right? Yep. If I'm not going to have my baby, but what happens to my body? I suffer for just God's plan. You know what I mean? I don't go on. I risk my life. I go septic. I can, you know what I mean?
There is a huge amount in life of unfairness, because, this world is not a perfect place, obviously. And there are a lot of bad things, and people make decisions based on whatever they choose. And I'm saying that about myself too. Not everybody's going to always agree with the decisions I make, but I make the decisions based on what my faith is. Just as, and I'm not sitting here disagreeing with your argument. I really am not.
And I make those decisions off of like,
you have
coming, not even just being a woman, but just having the empathy of like,
right.
That is a terrifying situation to be in.
Right.
And I'm a grown woman where if I were to get pregnant, I would totally have a baby, because I'm a grown woman.
Oh,
that can
absolutely.
Themselves, but who am I to tell anybody else in any other life circumstances that it's selfish of them or that they're killing, you know what I mean? Or
and again, at the same time, and I look at that and I will tell you this: I've had friends who have had abortions, and they sit there and it's like I tell them, look, it's they think that I hate them for it. I don't.
It's one of the hardest decisions a woman has to make.
It's not something, because I'm not, y'all. I'm not. I just know what I believe, and I believe I'm 100% pro-life. That's never going to change. But I also know that God forgives in certain situations. And so when somebody had like an abortion 5 years ago, and then later on they regret it, and they're like, I know God's never forgiven. No, He has. He already has. But what you have to do when you're in a situation like me and I start looking at policy and I start looking at everything, I have to go based off of what my personal thoughts are, but I also have to go based off what the law is. Mm-hmm. And I may not like it, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to do the right thing for the city no matter what. I'm going to do the right thing for the people. And I'm not going to look at you, let's say, that you had that happen and you did something, and I'm not going to look at you and judge you for it. In fact, who am I to do that either?
Oh, yeah. And I don't think it would be a matter of caring about being judged, but it's the fact of like, we can't say like God's going to forgive us because what happens in the situation of rape or sexual assault.
Yeah, no, and I get that too.
And making a woman have to go through this and whatever the implications are of that, whether that pregnancy being hard on the woman, about whether that woman has to raise this child, because in that same respect, yes, people want to adopt these babies, but how do we bridge that gap where these babies that were put into this world, like how do we ensure that those babies are getting taken care of? Because at the end of the day, if we're not, these women are having their children, they're holding resentments to their children, and it's nature almost, and it's like what happens when these women go down spirals and they are shitty to their kids and they put their kids in the damn system. And I see what you're saying. I understand completely. And again, I'm not,
I look at, I can't unsee what I saw.
Oh yeah, no.
And I will never change. But at the same time, I'm not going to sit next to a woman that did that and judge them for it.
Well, so those sort of laws, though, those weren't implemented by the mayor.
No, those were no.
To enforce those
all you can do is enforce it.
So, yeah,
and it is what it is.
She was just wanting to know.
But you know what? In all honesty, and I'm just being honest. I'm not the type of guy that's going to go and look at anybody and judge them for anything they did. I'm not. I've had family members that have had them. I've had friends that have had them. When I was in college, my girlfriend at the time, did that without my knowledge, and it broke my heart.
Right. Yeah. And I don't think it has anything to do with judging. Yeah. I think it has more so to do with like advocating and
right.
And finding solutions to these things that are just the cruelties of the world,
right?
The cruelties of life,
right? And at the end of the day,
because at the end of the day, a person's judgment is the last thing.
Anybody cares about. Right.
I'm talking
but what they need to do if they want to change these things is get out and vote. And there's just not enough people to vote. And when you have 10% of the vote and 90% complaining, then maybe that 90%, if they get to the polls.
And so, I think
that's
they could change.
I mean,
things.
I know y'all are kind of like at the tail end of like your campaigns and stuff like that, but like, have there been efforts, not just like on your part, but like, do you know of any efforts of like anybody else running that has made an effort to acclimate themselves or become inclusive with other subcultures within Lubbock? You know what I mean? To maybe educate people on the importance of government. Because I mean, we have a platform, yes, and we're going to share this, and your people are going to share this, but that's only such a small part of us being like, watch it, and you being like, I'm going to show you why.
Win, lose, or draw, I'm going to continue doing that. That's what Luke is about. On April 23rd, when we have this forum, that's going to help a lot of people, and there's going to be information that's there. We're going to even register people to vote there. Mm-hmm. If they want to. We have people that are registrants. They won't be able to vote in this election, but I don't care. I want them registered to vote. I want them taking part in the process, because that is so important, because this is their lives that we're voting on. Okay, the way that their livelihoods are going to be affected by this council is tremendous, and a lot of people just don't understand that. A lot of people don't understand how important it is to have somebody at the state level, that carries weight. I don't know how many of you guys know Dustin Burrows, but you got to get to know him because he is a powerful man in the House, and he is doing a lot of things that are really, really helpful in making this community better and more affordable. And if we didn't have him there, and he was in a tight race this last one, but let's say he lost, then we go all the way back to the bottom of that barrel because people didn't show up to vote. And let's say we had lost him, then somebody else would have had that. And we would have lost a lot of people, a lot of the things that he's doing in Lubbock that are benefiting Texas Tech and benefiting, the people of Lubbock. We would have lost a great ambassador. And we've got to watch that. Like Jody Arrington, he's a chairman of budget. He's on Ways and Means. So a lot of the spending has to go through him, right? And a lot of the ways that things are looked at. And the things that he does for agriculture, for everything else that's around here, all of a sudden he carries a lot more weight. Ronnie Jackson just down there. So we have West Texas is powerful because of those guys. Ronnie actually is one of the most influential people in the country, even before his congressional time. But the fact that we have people representing us at this level over here, if we lose them, Lubbock, it wouldn't have continued to grow. And by growing, I mean economically, where it would be a lot worse. And we have to participate in the process. It's that important. Somebody like me, like I said, I'm coming here and I'm the guy that's going to bring change, but not in a way that's going to just freak everybody out, but in a way that's going to make life easier and better for the people that are struggling right now, because I'm one of them. Maybe not right now, but a lot of my family members are, and I came from that. There's no disconnect. I'm completely connected to the very people that are asking these questions that may not vote for me, and that's okay. Because maybe I don't agree with them on this, but I'm still looking after them. So whether I get elected or not, I'm going to do the right thing. And if I can't do it as mayor, I'm going to continue doing it through Luca, and we're going to continue doing everything we can to help the same people that we're talking to right now, regardless of if they disagree with me. That shouldn't matter. But the vote does matter. Mm-hmm. And again, I hope they vote for me, but
and I hope
I
that
just want them to vote.
Ask questions are registered to vote.
Yes,
because
please.
You can't be a nosy ass and not vote. Okay?
They won't. Hey, I'm just gonna be. I don't think. Probably 10% are gonna vote.
Yeah,
so
I know.
Freedom Act is not gonna get passed.
I can tell you this. I think you're right. I think you're right. There's only going to be 10% to vote, but we better hope that 10% votes for some change. And I'm not talking about Freedom Act. I'm talking about Lubbock is becoming more and more unaffordable, and it's becoming more and more dangerous place to live. And we can't stay status quo anymore. We have to have somebody that has got a plan that they can implement to improve the security of this city and the people that live in it, especially at the colleges and really in our neighborhoods, because that's where we're being infiltrated the most, and that's where we have the least protection. Because if you think that all those shortages aren't affecting us more than everybody else, then you're sadly mistaken. And I have a lot of family and a lot of friends that, I spend more time in the Arnett Benson area and really with Tim and just several places, trying to help the very people that are in the most danger. And I jumped in this race because I'm concerned. And I'm giving up. Now think about this. I'm giving up traveling with the Trump campaign all over the country. And it would have been really nice to stay here for a job where half the people are going to hate me when it's over, making $75 a month, doing a job that nobody appreciates. But I'm going to have to make decisions that if I am elected, that are not going to be popular with a lot of people. But if I do it and I do my job right, whether I get reelected or not, it's not going to matter, because it would have made a big enough impact that we can actually breathe easier as a city. And that's what's important to me.
Yeah.
Tony Renteria.
May
4th.
Yes.
May 4th, 2024.
Yes.
That's when they can go vote.
Yes. And actually, early voting, I think, is on the 20th.
I didn't know that day. That's why I said
21st through the 30th, I believe. I'm trying to remember, but I'll get you that information. I should know it.
And those books too, please.
Yes, I will do that too. I will get you the list of those books or a link to it, and then that way you can share it with people. But it's it's really scary what they're introducing to our children, and we got to put a stop to that.
Did you have anything?
Yeah,
My fault.
Jen, no, you're good. Jen asked the more deeper questions. I was just you mostly. I wrote 1.5 pages, but you've actually answered most of them. The last things I was just going to ask is like, how do we improve infrastructure and construction? And
we had an opportunity, right? And we're going to have to go back and beg those people to come back, because there are companies nationwide or worldwide actually that go to different cities and stuff where dorms are needed, and if we have Kent Hance, who's a great ambassador to tech, and Mark McDougall, who does considerably good things, that draw these people into Lubbock, for the sake of really helping, create more infrastructure, and because they understand the need for it, and we're going to have it. One of the things that I do, and I have a lot of friends in higher end government, where I'm going to call in some favors if I'm elected, and that's one thing I bring to the table that nobody else does. I know a lot of people by name, by first name basis. I have their cell phones from all the way through Congress and the Senate and up to the old Oval Office. But I'm going to start pulling some of those favors, and we need the infrastructure projects and stuff. Now, one of the things that we did before that was taken off the table was opportunity zones, and I was actually there and I have the pen that was used to sign it, where it created zones. That help put minorities from the black community, the Hispanic community, then also the lower income community, where you could create opportunities for them. And so what happened is, like, businesses would come there and they would be asked to hire and train people from those communities to get X amount of money and it was substantial from the government, and it was controlled by Latinos. And for the Latino community, by African Americans, for the African American community, by, like people that were from the communities that it was helping. And that would have created a lot of infrastructure projects. And Lubbock was a part of that, because we had a seat at that table. But when Biden took office, he was so busy canceling everything that was the first thing that he did. I mean, he just said, oh, we're just going to repeal all that. And we're talking billions of dollars that would have helped into South Texas, into here, out in different areas of the, not just the state, but every state in the country. And we're going to need to get that back out here again. But the one thing I will tell you is we're going to revisit some of this stuff that was shot down. And, we have a completely different council now, right? Because the 2 council members that are running for this spot are no longer there. Unless you put one of them back at mayor, then good luck. But if I'm in there, I know I can work with, at the very minimum, 3 of them, and we have the votes to make some stuff happen. And it's going to be, pretty intense watching some of the things that we're going to do to bring that infrastructure back, because we need it. You cannot have a city that prospers without infrastructure changes, and we're going to have to do something pretty quick about it.
Awesome.
Cool.
Jen, anything else?
No, just follow us at Lords of Film.
There you go.
I got one last question.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I was plugging me.
Do you believe in aliens?
No.
I'm just kidding. Hey, thank you for coming.
Y'all are cool as hell. I really appreciate the opportunity. Y'all are great. Thank you so much.
Patreon.com/SnakePit Studios. Check it out. Thank you again, man.
Thank you.
Go vote.
Thank you.